Free Talk Live. Welcome to the program. The phones are open. We're here on the live Saturday edition of the show. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Coming up, county employees who aren't the police are now maybe going to be getting protections like they're the police. Captain's got a story about that.
Yeah, it's a little confusing at the start, but the nuts and bolts are that they're claiming at least one court has granted them qualified immunity, which previously was only reserved for law enforcement.
We'll find out about why that is.
Well, that's everyone's problem with qualified immunity anyway, right? Is that not enough government workers have it.
Apparently more are qualifying every day.
Exactly.
Yeah, not a surprise. So we can talk about that, plus your calls and thoughts about whatever you want. But in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And egregious Philbin.
And Peakless Mountaineer, you wanted to talk about the Captain Kickass.
It's the Captain. I'm sorry.
Peakless Mountaineer, you wanted to talk about the Chinese chip manufacturers. These are computer chip, silicon-based computer chips that they're cranking out in China for various different purposes. You remember during the COVID lockdowns, there were serious slowdowns on parts coming from China. Mm-hmm. Automotive manufacturers were complaining because they were unable to get...
It's still a thing. Like, if you have a used car right now, it's probably worth more than it will ever be.
Wow.
Because they still are suffering from the chip shortage for the production of new cars.
I mean, I know two of my...
I had to take my car to the shop recently this week, and when you walk in, they have a big old sandwich board. Please talk to us about selling us your used car. Top dollar paid. Money, 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 money.
So, yeah, I remember when I was out in Denver, literally every single place was out of cars for rent.
Yeah.
Like, you could not rent a car in that city for weeks.
Yeah. So this particular time, I took my car to the dealership because I wanted the dealership to do the work. And I'm like, hey, can I get a loaner? They're like,
whoa.
And I'm like, why do you laugh? They're like, you would have to make your appointment for like 3 months out for us to give you a loaner. And I'm like, how come? They're like, well, we just don't have any cars to loan out. And I go, you have an entire dealership full of cars. Why can't you loan me one of those? They're like, that's not the way it works. And I'm like, well, then you should change the way it works.
Right.
Right? Because, So.
Wow. Well, I don't know how hard they've been trying, but a couple of people who live around here have been trying to sell their cars and have not sold them at all. So maybe they're priced too high, or maybe there's just not enough buyers right now for the used car market. I don't know. Maybe the prices are too high and people are trying to cut back on spending. I don't know.
Hard to tell. Hard to tell.
I know that if someone can push that out any further, that they absolutely will. So, like, if they need a car right now, then they'll be willing to pay. But if they're like, well, you know, this one's got this and this wrong with it, I should really get a different one. Right now, people are pushing those kind of purchases as far into the future as they can.
I do have a workaround for people looking to rent a vehicle, though. If you're trying to go to like Hertz or Avis or you know any of the big rental agencies and rent a car, like if you're traveling, renting a car, not a problem, particularly if you package it with your flight and that kind of a thing in your hotel. If you go through an agency, like that's not a problem. You can rent a car. But if you're just like a townie and you're like, hey, yeah, my car's in the shop. I need to rent a car for a week or something while my car is getting fixed. That's a little more difficult to do. The workaround, of course, U-Haul. That's right. Rent yourself a U-Haul for a couple of days. It's like $20 a day plus mileage or whatever. It's actually probably less expensive than going to like Hertz and Avis, or at least on par with it.
Okay.
And then like if you need
gas
extra,
mileage isn't going to be as good. But.
No, but you know you can still get around and you can haul stuff while you're at it.
That's a good point.
Like,
all right, good idea.
Yeah, I wish I could remember what they were called, but there was also a couple. So like I went to all these different places to rent a car, and at one point the guy said,
"When did you do this?"
This was when I was off the air. So
okay.
Okay. But yeah,
so a few weeks ago.
Yeah. So I ended up going to one place where he's like, well, if it's just in town that you needed to go, which it wasn't, unfortunately. Have you tried this or this? Apparently, there's a couple of apps where like people will lend their car.
Turo.
Yeah.
How do you spell that?
Turo. I think it's .com, or just go on the App Store and type in Turo. It is basically the Uber of lending your car to people.
Right.
So instead of calling somebody who's driving you somewhere, you're going to go, they'll even come to you. This Turo app is great. It'll like, yeah, what do you want to rent? Yeah, I want to rent this. Oh, they're in your area. Okay, great. I want to rent it for this amount of time. They'll like drive to you with like a driver behind them, hand you the keys, you know, do the exchange, the whole 9 yards. The Turo.
Is there a credit check? There must be.
I believe there is when you sign up for the Turo before you actually go and rent a car. But once you pass all their stuff or whatever, then everything else is handled by the app, including insurance. So if you don't, like, I know New Hampshire, it's not required for you to have insurance, but the Turo app requires you to have insurance in order to lend your car, but they provide the insurance.
Interesting.
So, yeah, so there. What it seems to me is that Turo sprung out of an insurance company. And the insurance company said, oh, hey, wait a minute. If we just develop an app for people to, you know, sort of rent their unused car, like say
it's
you have
just
two
sitting
cars,
there.
whatever, it's just sitting
so,
there.
I mean, if you don't drive every single day, all day, and you've got a car that's just sitting, then it could be making you some money at the very least.
And they have it's similar requirements. So if you've ever driven for like Uber or Lyft or whatever, usually they have requirements for like your car needs to be no older than X, 10 years or whatever. It has to be, this many miles or less, and not rusty, and they have things that you need to sort of pay attention to. But if you got two cars and they're, I don't know, a decade old or less, why not?
Makes sense. That's a cool idea.
But I mean, just goes to show that like even at the place where they rent cars, they are so out of cars that the guy is telling me, here, please go to a competing service. Like a service that competes with my industry.
Which,
informing people, I assume I'm not the first person he's told, informing people of this service that exists to compete with his industry.
Well, it's better that he
advertising for him.
Well, I mean, it's better that he give you something than nothing. I mean, at least then you'll maybe think of him the next time, right? Like, that guy was good.
I want to say that is excellent customer service.
Right.
That is.
If
your company is in the business of providing a thing and you can't,
right. You do the best thing you
do the best thing you can for your customer and go, hey, you know what? Bob over here, he's got some of this.
Right.
Sorry, we're out. We'll see you next time, but Bob's got some for it. And then you'll remember that. You know what? They looked out for me this time, and they said they sent me to a competing product.
Right. They didn't have to do that. They could have just sent you away and empty-handed.
Yep. Yeah. Excellent customer service on that. But I mean, it all really goes to show how scarce these chips are. And I think that this is just the beginning of, I mean, I wouldn't go as far as some. Some have said that like chips are the new oil. That like in the same way that like my entire life has definitely been preoccupied by who gets to control what oil fields. Oh, we found oil in the Middle East, so we have perpetual war over who gets to run them. Some people have said that chips are the new oil, and I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's interesting to watch that. I mean, number one, there's obviously a huge shortage in it. Number two, this shortage is affecting, it's already affecting the car industry, and how much longer before it starts affecting every other kind of tech industry.
I'm not a finance guru or an attorney, but to me, silicon and what's the other material I'm thinking of? Oh, lithium. Those two things, right? If you got money to invest, that's where I'm putting my money. Outside of crypto and gold and silver.
If you want to join the show, you're welcome to weigh in here. Maybe you're paying close attention to this industry. Maybe you're in the business of cars and or computer chips, and you have some inside info that you want to share. We'd love to hear from you. It's 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. The story we're going to get to, apparently, is about the computer chips and even more restrictions that may be put into play by the U.S. federal government on this.
Yeah, on lithium, though, that's been one theory for why we're at war in Afghanistan, is because of the tremendous deposits of lithium and how necessary those are for absolutely all battery technology. And I mean, it's absolutely necessary for battery technology, but that's not the only tech that you need lithium for.
Right.
The number is 603-283-6160. You can bring up anything you want here. This is the live Saturday episode of Free Talk Live. And, of course, you can take control of the airwaves. We can talk about all kinds of things. Since we're talking about China as well, guess what? Lockdowns are back in China. And we can talk about that as well. You can join us on Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Hi, I'm Derek J. I don't want a politician to represent me. To me, government is the idea that one group of people can coerce everyone to comply with an edict or face increasing punishments up to and including death. Despite perhaps the most noble of intentions, the best government services are a far cry from what could be provided for by voluntary interactions. Besides, the people who call themselves the government wage wars and put peaceful people in jail for crimes involving no victims. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join the show here and bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Bitcoin.com is where you can go to start learning about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. There are some important new ideas that you probably should get a grasp on. And you can do that by clicking Get Started at the top of the page. over at Bitcoin.com. They have introductory videos that you can watch there. If you're time challenged, just watch the first one. You'll get down some new ideas before you get into the world of cryptocurrency. It's an important idea. There's some new stuff you really need to understand, like decentralization and why that matters, why we should be cutting out the banks and the governments of the world from the picture of money. And that's some of the things you'll learn over at Bitcoin.com when you click Get Started right there at the top of the page. So you can also go to their news site and get the latest news headlines over at news.bitcoin.com. Tonight it's Ian Peakless Mountaineer and Captain Kickass here in the studio. We're going to continue with your calls and thoughts. Zach is on the line in Kentucky. Go ahead, Zach.
Yes, one of you all had mentioned using U-Haul vehicles as rental vehicles.
Yeah.
I actually did that 2 years ago. I had a vehicle break down on me on a Sunday, and I needed a vehicle to get to work on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, man, Hertz and those other companies, they're so high. And then it dawned on me, hey, why not rent a U-Haul? And so I had my wife take me down to the local U-Haul rental place on a Monday morning, and I was able to rent. It was a brand new Chevrolet Silverado pickup with U-Haul livery all the way around it for, like you said, $20 a day plus mileage. And shoot, it wasn't bad at all.
And they don't care where you go with it, right? As long as you bring it back, or you can even bring it back to another U-Haul if you want to, right?
That's right.
I think that one in particular had to come back to that particular U-Haul, but I think the box trucks, I think they can go, pretty well to any one of them.
But yeah, $20 a day for a truck, just a regular pickup truck. I mean, what would you pay for a sedan down at Avis or one of those other places?
I mean, it's probably similar pricing for the mega low budget cars, like the tiny hatchback, kind of thing.
Yeah. You can't haul anything in that, though. I mean,
no, not at all.
Truck's more useful. Cool, man.
That is for sure.
Thanks for sharing the story. Anything else, Zach, you want to share with us?
That'll be all. I enjoy listening to you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate your call tonight. Appreciate hearing from you.
Heck yeah.
The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. So
U-Haul's even their trucks could be rented for multiple purposes, and you can rent other accessories. I'm not trying to be an advertisement for U-Haul.
I'll tell you what. I've had my bad experience with U-Haul.
I have too.
One of the one time I moved across town in Florida and I rented a big old U-Haul truck for it. And man, that thing was in terrible shape. But this was 20 years ago. I was trying to shift gears, and it was just grinding as I was trying to just shift the manual transmission.
Yeah,
and it was really like nail biting driving that thing just across town. I couldn't imagine taking that thing cross country or something like that. But luckily, when I moved up to New Hampshire a few years later, I went to Penske, and at that time they had updated their entire line, their whole fleet.
Yeah,
they'd changed them out with brand new trucks.
Got a reputation for
and
good trucks.
It was a smooth ride, all the way up.
When I moved out to New Hampshire, I put my stuff in the U-Haul version of the pods.
Yep.
Right,
yep.
And I will never do that again. That being said, they were the least expensive option.
For a reason.
For that. So, yeah, you get what you pay for is what I'm saying. But
what was the issue with that?
Well, there were multiple issues, but let's just suffice it to say when the pod showed up in New Hampshire, it was crooked.
Which makes it hard to open the door, get the lock off, things like that.
It's kind of clothy, so it wasn't, but I felt like the thing was going to fall in on itself at any moment.
The one I had from U-Haul was like wooden.
It's wooden, but it's got like I don't know what you call it, some sort of a vinyl cloth thing around it that is the walls.
That you close it up.
And so, and then when you close it up, there is a place for you to put a latch, but the rest of the door is literally this vinyl
Okay, that
stuff.
wasn't my experience.
So, at any rate, I don't recommend the pods thing unless you're doing short distance. I did cross country with it. Yeah. It worked out. Don't get me wrong. I didn't lose anything. Nothing was broken. It just looked like it had been through a war by the time it showed up at my door. But U-Haul can save you money on things like towing. If you don't live anywhere near your shop, wherever you take your car to get it fixed, you can rent, like this guy did, a Silverado truck or a van with the towing hitch on the back, and then you can rent a either a car carrier that's a flatbed that you can just drive a car up onto, or the two-wheeled one where you just drive the car onto it's a really short-looking trailer, and you just put your two wheels onto this thing and then strap them in.
The back two wheels are still on the ground?
Yeah, okay. Generally speaking. And that's, I mean, if you're looking at, $300-400 for a tow bill, U-Haul might be the way to go if you've got a little bit of initiative.
Good thinking. These are things people need to know, especially when things are getting more expensive than ever.
They certainly are.
Buyer beware.
Well, and especially when we're advocating actively that they move if they are a lover of liberty to New Hampshire.
Absolutely. If you're sane, that's what you'll want to do, for sure.
If I had it to do over, I would select the actual Pods company. The brand name for the thing that I did,
because theirs are like stable metal.
I would have paid. It was more money, and I was trying to be budget conscious, and I was, and it worked out. But just if I had it to do over again, I'd pay a little bit extra for the branded company.
So, Peakless, you had a story tonight about chip manufacturing. Computer chip manufacturing.
Oh, not the California Highway Patrol?
No.
No Ponch, no John?
Also not like deep fried potato slices or anything like that.
Nacho cheese?
So tell me about it. What's going on?
Well, let's see. I've got this from The Guardian. Biden administration imposes sweeping tech restrictions on China. New rules include measure to exclude China from using semiconductor chips made anywhere in the world with U.S. tools. And when I first read that, I'm like, now, wait a second.
How are they going to enforce that?
Right? I mean, one of the things that I thought immediately is like, now, are they like doing the same sort of a nonsensical thing that they did with Julian Assange, where they're like, we have decided that our laws apply to you in spite of the fact that there's no logical reason whatsoever why they would. So that was my first thought, is like, now, wait a second. Are American is the American executive branch starting to apply its restrictions to places that are outside, theoretically, outside of American control? And I mean, getting into the article, I didn't see anything so far that says that, but I do see that what they are doing is restricting anyone from selling the tools that you need in order to make these chips to any Chinese-controlled company.
Hold on. They're restricting anyone, meaning any manufacturer anywhere in the world?
Yes. If it's American tools, you're not allowed to sell them to a Chinese company. But we'll have to get into the article.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear more about this, because it wouldn't surprise me if some of them were made in America. I had heard computer chip making machines were made in Germany, but I could be wrong about that.
I have questions.
The number here, they probably come from multiple places. 603-283-6160. The machines that make computer chips, they got to be pretty crazy, huh? It's Free Talk Live. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp, is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow with the Week in Review. This week, the United Kingdom heard another resignation speech from a Conservative Prime Minister. Liz Truss is the fourth leader to step down since 2016. She lasted just 6 weeks in office, the shortest tenure of any Prime Minister. The Conservative Party is beginning the process of choosing a new leader, who will also become the next UK Prime Minister. The winner will be chosen by October 28th, and Conservative MP Robert Halfon says the party has to get it right.
Either rightly, in my view, we face electoral oblivion, or we take a last chance from the public and make sure that we get a leader, one who will be a unifier, also that will govern with integrity.
Throughout the week, Russian missiles have struck key pieces of Ukrainian infrastructure. The country's President Volodymyr Zelensky says 30% of power stations have been destroyed. Kyiv, the US and its allies say many of the attacks were conducted using Iranian-made drones, a charge both Moscow and Tehran have vehemently denied. Ukraine's called on its partners to send more air defence systems. Germany delivered the first of 4 of the systems to Kyiv earlier this month, a move welcomed by President Zelensky, who says more of the defence technology is needed to protect civilians from attacks. From Berlin, Trent Murray has more.
The German-made air defence system was handed over by Berlin in recent weeks to Kyiv following Russia's aerial bombardment of multiple cities. The system is designed to protect a medium-sized city and can intercept incoming rockets or missiles at a range of up to 40 kilometres. Zelensky stressed, though, that Ukraine needs more of the anti-aircraft systems in order to try and create an air shield around other civilian areas. He specifically called out France, Italy and the United States for further support. Trent Murray, Berlin.
The US House Committee investigating the January 6th attack on the US Capitol issued a subpoena to former President Donald Trump on Friday. And as US correspondent Rachel Silverman reports, Trump could face legal challenges if he doesn't comply.
The subpoena requires the former president to turn over documents by November 4th and to appear for a deposition on November 14th. The House committee says its hearings presented overwhelming evidence that Trump personally orchestrated and oversaw a multi-part effort to overturn the 2020 election and to obstruct the peaceful transition of power. Trump could face legal charges if he fails to comply with the subpoena. He has reportedly suggested to aides that he might be willing to testify to the House panel if he could do so live. Rachel Silverman, San Francisco.
And a US judge has sentenced former Trump advisor Steve Bannon to 4 months in jail for contempt of Congress. Bannon refused an order to testify before the committee investigating the January 6th attack. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian.
Bigless Mountaineer.
And the Lord Reverend Dr. Captain Kickass is here.
Want to say thanks to Ellen Blanchard, who is a Free Talk Live supporter of our AMPS program. It's amps.freetalklive.com, where you can sign up as Ellen has done. Ellen is gold level, which means she's doing twice what we have asked. We ask $5 a month. So thank you, Ellen, for signing up over at amps.freetalklive.com. Advertise, market, promote, and support. If you like what we do here and you want us to do it more often and want us to do it in more places, then you can help us with that at amps.freetalklive.com. You get perks like access to the Amps-only podcast that has the full radio show minus the recorded commercials. That is what you get. One of the things you get. There's a few other things, so you can go to amps.freetalklive.com to learn more. Let's go to the phones to Rudy.
Thanks, Ellen.
In Arizona. We'll talk more about these Chinese chip manufacturers and the Biden administration trying to ruin their business and possibly harm the rest of the world being able to get, well, chips manufactured, it sounds like. But we'll get into the details. Rudy, go ahead. You're on the air.
Thank you. It's a Dutch company that makes it's ASML.
Yeah.
They're the company that makes these $200 million machines that make the chips that grow the silicon, I think. I don't know. But it's, anyway, and they're the only ones in the world that does it. But this week, Biden literally shut down the entire Chinese computer chip business because he gave an ultimatum to every American that's working in China at these plants in China. He basically threatened them with their citizenship.
Wow.
You can stay there and work in China, or you can come back and be an American. And everybody said, we quit. They left, just put the skids on every company. Think about that.
This seems really crazy to be going after these Chinese chip manufacturers. I mean, because there's a lot of products that are using these chips. What is the plan to get chips made if they're not going with the Chinese manufacturers? I mean, that maybe there's another manufacturer in some other country, but
apparently the plan is to go with American chip manufacturing.
Is there such a thing?
China doesn't make any high-performance chips. That's Taiwan. China makes a lot of chips, but toasters and whatever.
This company that the caller mentions, ASML, they don't actually manufacture the chips. They manufacture
the machines,
the photolithography systems that are used to produce the chips.
Right.
Have you seen that machine?
I have not, but I'm just reading up on it now. They
check it out online. It is awesome. It is really.
They do enjoy a monopoly position by being the only supplier of the cutting-edge lithography systems. So to answer your question, they're the only game in town.
Well, right, but they're selling these chip manufacturing machines to companies that then manufacture chips with them.
Right.
So they're the only game for the machines that make chips, but what they're saying is those machines, if they're located in China, are essentially being shut off by the Biden administration economically.
Oh, no. Just the brain power.
Well, hold on, Peakless. What's the story that you have about these chips? Because didn't you say Biden was putting in restrictions? I guess I don't recall what all the details were on it. What's the news here that we're trying to share tonight?
Yeah, he's putting in restrictions on any company, any American company at least, selling any of the equipment that's used to manufacture chips to a Chinese company.
But this isn't an American company. This is a Dutch company located in the Netherlands. So I'm not sure if that's going to affect.
So that's actually one of the big questions that we're going to watch play out is, are the American allies going to back this play or not?
Meaning so like Western Europe might say, oh, we're going to do the same thing, essentially?
Right. So think, for example, about the oil embargo on Russia or whatever. So right now, we won't buy Russian oil. But if you have other countries that will buy Russian oil that you are willing to buy oil from, then you haven't really done an effective sanction there.
No.
The same thing's about to happen if the other countries don't back America's play here. So if all these other countries are like, yeah, we will totally sell you chip-making stuff.
Then nothing changes.
Right.
I
then,
see.
Well, I mean, it's harder, but it's it changes very little.
Go ahead, Rudy.
ASML won't ship their EUV technology to China. They won't sell China their $200 million machine.
They never have, or they're no longer?
They never have.
It says 42 countries around the globe have agreed to put export control measures on it because it's so critical.
Wow.
So it's not our choice, it's the choice of government. I don't know. Hey, I love your show. Bye.
Hey, thanks, Rudy, for the info there. Yeah, it's funny. He brought up the ASML company. I just happened to find the story about that during the break. This is from TechStream, Brookings.edu, where they show an image of this machine, and it's incredibly complex. And just reading the description is pretty impressive. So I'm gonna just share this with you here. An extreme ultraviolet lithography machine is a technological marvel. A generator ejects 50,000 tiny droplets of molten tin per second. A high-powered laser blasts each droplet twice. The first shapes the tiny tin. The second can vaporize it into plasma. The plasma emits extreme ultraviolet, EUV, radiation that is focused into a beam and bounced through a series of mirrors. The mirrors are so smooth that if expanded to the size of Germany, they would not have a bump higher than a millimeter. That's how smooth these mirrors are.
That's pretty freaking smooth.
Finally, the EUV beam hits a silicon wafer, itself a marvel of material science, with a precision equivalent to shooting an arrow from Earth to hit an apple placed on the moon. This allows the EUV machine to draw transistors into the wafer with features measuring only 5 nanometers. That is approximately the length that your fingernail grows in 5 seconds. This wafer with billions or trillions of transistors is eventually made into computer chips. The EUV machine is made of more than 100,000 parts and costs approximately $120 million and is shipped, if you're allowed to buy it, apparently some people aren't, in China, is shipped in 40 freight containers. 40 freight containers. I mean, I've seen one of those things. They're huge.
It's like Iron Maiden on tour.
There are only several dozen of these machines on Earth, and approximately 2 years' worth of back orders exist for more of them. It might seem unintuitive that the demand for a $120 million tool far outstrips supply, but only one company can make them. It's the Dutch company ASML that Rudy was just referring to.
So I've got just a quick addition from Reuters here. It's from back in January, but I think it's still probably effective. Under pressure from the U.S. government, the Dutch government has withheld granting a license for ASML to export these machines, which are considered dual-use goods with possible military applications.
Yeah, something similar from Bloomberg is ASML has never sold its extreme ultraviolet lithography machines, or EUVs, to Chinese clients. The Biden administration, as part of its attempt to keep China from developing the capability to make advanced semiconductors, has been trying to push the Dutch government to withhold ASML's older machines, called immersion deep ultraviolet lithography machines, or DUVs, that can be used in combination with other technology. The European Commission, as well as the Dutch and German governments, have undertaken a coordinated lobbying campaign to oppose restrictions on a critical European company while U.S. competitors continue to do business with Chinese companies. According to officials who spoke under the condition of anonymity, because talks are sensitive, they've argued in part that such restrictions are now pointless given that ASML, which generated 15% of its revenue in China last year, has already sold many of these machines to the Chinese companies. The lesser machines, not the big machines, but the previous version.
Unit.
Right, yeah.
I see.
So
yeah, one of the interesting things for me is how much this limits their manufacturing base. So sure, you can manufacture anything that doesn't have a chip, but what doesn't have a chip in it these days?
Well, they do have chip manufacturing machines, just not the newest model, is what the captain just said.
Apparently they're working pretty hard to make that change.
There's more coming up here in moments. You can share your thoughts as well. It's Free Talk Live. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
If you've never been to a pawn shop, it's probably not what you're expecting. I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. Think yard sale, where you can be the buyer or the seller. The cash you need today may be something that's gathering dust right now in your garage or attic. Why wait till next Christmas to re-gift stuff that Santa brought last Christmas? Need power tools? Who cares if that second-hand electric drill is scratched up? It looks like you've been working. When you see someone with a Rolex watch, a real one, can you tell whether they bought it new? Are you ready to pop the question? That diamond took millions of years to create. Who cares if someone else owned it for 3 years? Get the stone remounted. She'll never know. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. The phones are open here. The live Saturday episode, and you can join us at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Join us online as well anytime over at freetalklive.com. The features that we have for you there are completely free. We've got our own social media site. It's social.freetalklive.com. You can interact with other Free Talk Live listeners. Some of the hosts are there as well. And it's open source, it's self-hosted, we run the server, that means we set the rules, and there aren't very many rules. Just don't spam us, okay? Otherwise, you can express yourself however you want over at social.freetalklive.com. When you sign up, it will ask you how you found the site or why you're signing up. Just reference Free Talk Live in some way, and you'll be in. No problem. That's how we keep the spam bots and spam artists out.
We must ask you a question.
Yes. I've never heard that one before.
Really?
Captain.
Oh my God! No, that's dead.
Wow. I've never heard that one. All right, so let's go to the phones here. We got Jacob watching us on our Twitch feed. Ooh. Go ahead, Jacob. What's on your mind? Calling from Alabama.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey, what's on your mind?
Basically, recently, Alabama has come under a lot of fire because a lady in Coleman, Alabama, recently posted on TikTok that she was teaching her children. She's a teacher. Just very racist and bigoted things. And then it came under a lot of other fire that actually this town of Alabama is quote-unquote a sundown town, which is a very old saying. It basically means if you are not of the white pigment of skin and you are in this town under sundark, you basically, a lot of bad things will happen to you.
Oh.
And the Supreme Court has gotten this notion and has heard this. And they're basically, obviously they're under a lot of fire, and they're not really sure what to do about this. So I guess I just wanted to get you guys' input on what you think would be the best decision to do.
Who's not sure what to do about this? I'm not really clear who the they was.
Basically, the options, because the backstory of this is my mother works for the Supreme Court, and basically what she said was what they're thinking about doing was...
Just to clarify, before you go on, you're talking about the Alabama Supreme Court?
Yeah,
okay.
Alabama Supreme Court. So obviously the teacher was obviously fired. She doesn't work anymore. But the issue is, Alabama's a very, we're very supportive of, the civil rights movement and whatnot. But we don't know what to do with these people in this town because the mass majority of these people are all racist and bigoted, and they're not, obviously they're not going to change their mindsets. They're going to keep doing this. So we're not really sure, as the Supreme Court and as a society of Alabama, what to do about this part of town.
Well, what is the case exactly? Because the Supreme Court can't act unless there's a case that's been brought. So is there a case in front of them?
Yeah, so basically, about a month or two ago, there was a lot of calls from people who live in Coleman who were saying that a lot of people were doing a lot of classic things of, burning crosses on people's yards, and, just all the nonsensical things that people do.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's been a lot of murder that's been happening in that town, and obviously, it's just black men and black women being murdered. And the Supreme Court is basically they're not sure. What my mother was saying was that they were thinking about, in a way, kind of exiling this town and maybe moving these people to another part of the United States, or just getting them out of Alabama, because, we're very civil rights. We really appreciate, what everybody has done in this town. We really want this movement to keep going. But it sucks because these people are really ruining it for all of us.
Yeah, so I'm not real clear on what exactly the case is in front of the Supreme Court where they could do anything. Because if there's no case, did I miss it? Did you say it? And I
didn't catch that either.
Basically, the mass majority of the case is just that people have been just reporting a lot of racially insensitive murder and a lot of just racially insensitive actions that have been going on in this town.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, so is it like a class action against the town itself, or?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Right now it's currently being led as like Alabama, like people of Alabama versus Coleman, pretty much.
Okay,
what's
gotcha.
happening.
So the state is suing the town.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I just don't know if there's, like you said, if there's anything that can be done. If a bunch of people of a similar mindset want to move to a place and move together and live whatever their values, even if we don't agree with what their values are, then they should be free to do that. And that includes people that I don't like. In fact, I would rather that they move together. I'm sorry for the good people of Coleman who don't want to have a bunch of racists within their midst. And thank you, Jacob, for the call tonight. I appreciate it. So I feel sorry for those people that have if this is true, right? We're taking his word for it. Mm-hmm. If it's true that Coleman is, racked with a bunch of racists that are making it difficult to even walk the streets at night as a black man or Hispanic gentleman or whatever, that sucks. But maybe you shouldn't live there. You know what I mean?
For the record, it's Coleman, Cullman.
Oh, Cull, C-U.
Yeah,
okay.
Which is ironic. Cull, right?
Dang.
Yeah. What do you think,
I would
Peakless?
like to point out that this is the effect of having a monopoly on a court system and on enforcement of bodily autonomy and not getting murderedness. Seriously, if you people are getting murdered here apparently. And nothing is being done about that. Now, that does not happen when you have competing dispute resolution organizations. When you get to compete over who can bring the most peace to this town, and this system is failing to bring murderers to justice, then if you had competition, everyone would go to their competition because they're not providing the necessary service.
That would certainly help in a marketplace that wasn't highly skewed towards. Again, we're going to take this guy at his word. I don't know if it's true. We haven't yet verified the claim on this case or anything like that. But just taking him at his word that Coleman is let's just say it's the majority of the town are unabashed racists. If those people if they're the supermajority of the town, then they're going to be running the protection agencies even if there aren't monopolies. Maybe there will be one competitor, but if 90% of the protection agencies in town are run by racists, you're still going to have a tough time as a black guy, right? So there's a certain kind of place I wouldn't want to be. And I wouldn't want to be in that town as any color person. I just wouldn't want to live in a place where there's a bunch of racists running around. That sounds like a really unpleasant place to be. And let's take it out of the racism card and go to something that definitely does exist. Where I'm from in Florida, there's a town a couple counties to the north. It's up in the Tampa Bay area. It's called Clearwater. And this is the home of the Scientology Church.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? There's a lot of Scientologists that live in Clearwater. Mm-hmm. There's so many Scientologists that live in Clearwater, they run the city council. Right? So they are kind of in charge, at least last I heard. It's been a while. We used to actually be on a station in Tampa more than a decade ago, and that signal was loud and clear in Clearwater. So there was one night we were talking about the Scientologists on the air, covering whatever the story was, whatever crazy, kooky, story it was at the time, and we were deluged with Scientologists that were calling in because they were hearing what we were talking about on the radio there in Clearwater, and they're literally everywhere. They're driving around, listening to the radio. They're on foot. They're everywhere in this town. And so, if you don't want to live around a bunch of litigious Scientologists, because those guys will sue you, they'll sue the pants off your ass if you say things that they don't like, and you don't want to live next to those people. So don't live in Clearwater. And if you don't want to live near racists, allegedly, don't live in Coleman, Alabama. And so there's something to be said for. We talk about it a lot. This migration of people, of individuals who have a like-minded viewpoint. In our case, it's libertarians and voluntarists migrating to New Hampshire. But the racists should go somewhere too. In fact, I would really like it if they would pick one place and all go to that one place. And I'm talking about black racists. I'm talking about white racists. Black nationalists should have their own little town or city, and the white nationalists should have theirs, and they should stay away from each other.
Well, so let's run this hypothetical. Let's assume that there's this whole town that they just absolutely do not want anyone in this town after sundown with a pigmentation past this point. Okay, so if they were not under a federal system that makes that illegal, then they could just post, hey, here are the rules. And no one's going to go to that town past a certain pigment. And let me tell you, a whole bunch of people aren't going to go to that town at all because they don't want to. They don't want to be propagating a bunch of racism.
Right. Apparently, Coleman is the town of somewhat of a urban legend, and that is. When I was traveling around on the carnival circuit, this legend sort of met my ears at some point. But it was. There's places in Alabama that are so racist they actually have signs up that say no N-words allowed. And so apparently Coleman is that town. I was just reading up on it. Now apparently that sign is gone, but according to this article, it did used to exist. No N-words and no Indians.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not seeing anything about cross burnings in recent news in Coleman. I mean, it probably happened at some point in the past, back in the day, but nothing's jumping out at me. So I don't know if it was true, that call, but might be. More coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow with the Week in Review. This week, the United Kingdom heard another resignation speech from a Conservative Prime Minister. Liz Truss is the fourth leader to step down since 2016. She lasted just 6 weeks in office, the shortest tenure of any Prime Minister. The Conservative Party is beginning the process of choosing a new leader, who will also become the next UK Prime Minister. The winner will be chosen by October 28th, and Conservative MP Robert Halfon says the party has to get it right.
Either rightly, in my view, we face electoral oblivion, or we take a last chance from the public and make sure that we get a leader, one who will be a unifier, also that will govern with integrity.
Throughout the week, Russian missiles have struck key pieces of Ukrainian infrastructure. The country's President Volodymyr Zelensky says 30% of power stations have been destroyed. Kyiv, the US and its allies say many of the attacks were conducted using Iranian-made drones, a charge both Moscow and Tehran have vehemently denied. Ukraine's called on its partners to send more air defence systems. Germany delivered the first of 4 of the systems to Kyiv earlier this month, a move welcomed by President Zelensky, who says more of the defence technology is needed to protect civilians from attacks. From Berlin, Trent Murray has more.
The German-made air defence system was handed over by Berlin in recent weeks to Kyiv following Russia's aerial bombardment of multiple cities. The system is designed to protect a medium-sized city and can intercept incoming rockets or missiles at a range of up to 40 kilometres. Zelensky stressed, though, that Ukraine needs more of the anti-aircraft systems in order to try and create an air shield around other civilian areas. He specifically called out France, Italy and the United States for further support. Trent Murray, Berlin.
The US House Committee investigating the January 6th attack on the US Capitol issued a subpoena to former President Donald Trump on Friday. And as US correspondent Rachel Silverman reports, Trump could face legal challenges if he doesn't comply.
The subpoena requires the former president to turn over documents by November 4th and to appear for a deposition on November 14th. The House committee says its hearings presented overwhelming evidence that Trump personally orchestrated and oversaw a multi-part effort to overturn the 2020 election and to obstruct the peaceful transition of power. Trump could face legal charges if he fails to comply with the subpoena. He has reportedly suggested to aides that he might be willing to testify to the House panel if he could do so live. Rachel Silverman, San Francisco.
And a US judge has sentenced former Trump advisor Steve Bannon to 4 months in jail for contempt of Congress. Bannon refused an order to testify before the committee investigating the January 6th attack. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, the crisis in Britain's governing Conservative Party after the resignation on Thursday of Liz Truss, destined now to become the country's shortest-serving Prime Minister in history. With candidates saddling up for yet another Conservative Party leadership race, the face of economic policies unveiled by Truss and then days later reversed hangs in the balance. Sir Anthony Selden is a political scholar in the UK whose book, The Impossible Office, charts the history of a variety of prime ministers. Liz Truss, he says, dug her own political grave.
It's totally of her own making. In a way, how dare she come in at a moment of such volatility in the country and do something which so many people said would have catastrophic consequences. Had she gained people's trust and confidence and respect and then introduced it, as Margaret Thatcher did with her trade union reforms, rather than blasting in, trying to do it all in one go, she could have taken her time and done the things that many people wanted to see being done and perhaps should well have been done and long overdue, and she'd have got it through without this massive reaction.
Who will follow her? Party grandees say we'll know the answer on October the 28th, but it's far from clear that another leadership contest will resolve the turmoil within the Conservative Party. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
FSN is an independent source of news for TV, radio and digital networks worldwide. You can find more of our minute-by-minute updates on Twitter. Follow us there at Feature Story. And we have a wealth of audio and video stories from our global news bureaus on Facebook. You can find us there by following Feature Story News. Stay tuned for further updates right here. But for now, that's the latest Feature Story News. William Denslow reporting.
Bruce Springsteen completed his new sci-fi concept album Red Dust, which explores the lives of struggling 23rd century carbonite miners on Mars. The 14 tracks on the album address a range of everyday trials and tragedies faced by blue-collar Martian men, simply trying to put food on the table for their embryonically harvested juvenile clones while living under the hypocrisies of a corrupt planetary federation. In business, top financial experts have indicated that any hope of recovery for the struggling U.S. economy rests solely on Spokane, Washington resident Bill Laughlin, who is currently browsing the power tools section at Sears. At 10:10 this morning, Laughlin investigated a scroll saw which sent stocks soaring nearly 300 points. 15 minutes later, with Laughlin straying away to try on sunglasses, Congress called an emergency joint session to offer Sears tax breaks in exchange for sending an experienced salesman over to help. In other news, a local man pushes the 4 millionth button of his life, and an area teenager is smoking like he's been to f***ing war or something.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. We kick off the second hour of the live Saturday episode with you tonight. It's Ian, Beakless Mountaineer,
and the Captain.
Join us online anytime over at freetalklive.com. Archives and more available to you. All of it's free at freetalklive.com. We were just talking with somebody who called in about the idea of a sundown town, which is a thing, apparently. Yeah. At least it was a thing. Whether it's still a thing or not, that's what the caller was alleging. He was alleging that the town of Cullman, 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 Alabama, was one of these places, or is one of these places. And according to the caller, and also I found an old article, I could not find anything recent about. He mentioned there were like cross burnings going on recently,
right? Or a Supreme Court case. I didn't find anything about that.
Supreme Court case he alleged, but he wasn't really clear about what it was. Yeah. And regardless, so he brought up this issue, and it is an interesting issue, and that is this idea of the sundown town. There's a story at TuscaloosaNews.com, but you have to go back to 2006 for this story. Talk about how it is one that forbade blacks, through ordinance or otherwise, to live in it. The name comes from the fact that many of these places posted signs, like the one on the cover of a book written by James W. Lowen. His book is Sundown Towns, that read, quote, "Whites only within city limits after dark," unquote. Although the existence of such communities is common knowledge, Lowen writes, almost no literature exists on the topic. Even book-length histories of the sundown towns omit their exclusionary policies. Lowen, a historian and sociologist who spent years studying the phenomenon, opens some of these long-locked closets. Among his findings is that most sundown towns existed outside of the Deep South. In Mississippi, for instance, there were no more than 6 such communities, while in Illinois he found no fewer than 456.
Wow. Midwest. What's going on?
Sometimes entire counties went sundown, particularly when their county seats adopted the exclusionary policy. They simply drove out their black populations, then posted warning signs. The author says, "I can't vouch for the accuracy of everything in the book. By its nature, much of Lowen's evidence is anecdotal. Though census records frequently support it, there are virtually no photographs of the notorious sundown signs. Even racist lynchings seem to have been better documented by the camera. But the tales endure. The book reminded me of a story I've heard all my life, one that's probably familiar to most Alabamians my age or older. Cullman was a sundown town. It displayed a sign that said, N, don't let the sun go down on your head. Some versions use a different body part in this town."
Wait. I'm sorry. I have to stop. The name for somebody from Alabama is Alabamian?
That's apparently the case, yeah.
Shouldn't you feel upset because they put Ian at the end of that
thing? Ian's at the end of a lot of things.
All right, I would have thought it would be Alabama.
But they also put Labam.
Labam. Nice. All right. Anyway, go on.
Or the story went, "I never actually saw such a sign, though I lived for years in northern Alabama," he says. Even some of the former Cullman residents who told me they'd grown up hearing about the sundown sign confessed they'd never actually seen it. I mean, they lived in the town. The internet is full of stories to the contrary, of course. One person wrote that his wife told him about a sign saying, "Welcome to Cullman," with a subhead that read, "N, don't let the sun set behind your back," unquote. Another claimed there was a huge billboard right at the Cullman city limits on Highway 278 saying, "And don't let the sun set on your butt in this town," that was on display as late as 1989. A picture of a Klansman and a burning cross accompanied the message, or so an anonymous poster claimed.
But no photo.
No. Now, cameras existed, at this time. They weren't as ubiquitous as they are today, where everyone with a smartphone has a camera that they can easily whip out. But, I mean, come on, film wasn't unpopular. Why isn't there some evidence of these signs?
Because they don't exist.
Or they didn't exist, or maybe they didn't. Charles Tisdale, the publisher of the Jackson, Mississippi Advocate, wrote in a year 2000 column that Cullman posted the sign for many, many years on its main street that read, "N, read and run. If you can't read, just run," unquote.
Well, if they can't read, how would they understand the sign?
Indeed. Right. Another writer claimed the same message was on a series of signs modeled on the old Burma Shave advertisements, posted one after another on a road leading to Cullman. One of the internet authors even claimed that though Cullman's sundown sign was dismantled years ago, it remains in storage in the basement of the county courthouse. These are some interesting stories,
so
right?
They say.
Yeah, these are total.
Yeah, I gotta like the young kids say, pictures didn't happen.
Yeah, these are.
And there are some things that I think that is perfectly applicable to, and this sign is definitely one of them. Oh no, it's folded up in the basement of a place that you're not allowed to go.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that saying.
Oh, is it now?
I'm pretty sure that saying is originated by people who are like 35 plus.
Oh yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so it definitely sounds like one of those urban legends. Lowen's book, even the book which identifies Cullman as one of the cities with a national reputation as a sundown town, its percentage of black residents in the year 2000 was 0.7, according to the U.S. Census, doesn't even mention a sign. Arab, a town on Sand Mountain in North Alabama.
Yeah, this is
supposedly, on Sand Mountain.
Supposedly the second most racist town behind Cullman, supposedly.
Apparently, according to Lowen, the author of the book, went Cullman one better. They wouldn't even allow blacks to enter during the day. Cullman, however, needed black day workers. According to Lowen, that resulted in the establishment of a community of about 20 miles south of Cullman that was virtually all African American. It existed, he writes, to house the black labor pool that was excluded from living in Cullman, maids, janitors, and handymen.
Wait, is this the colony?
You're right. Blacks and whites alike called it the colony. Does it still exist?
I don't know, but it when I was reading about it in the last segment, or in the commercial for the last segment, it sounded to me like they had created a reservation.
Wow.
For the black people, because they needed them as day workers, but they didn't want them in their town. So they said, okay, we're going to create this little space over here, and we're going to call it the colony.
The colony.
And apparently later on, they just shortened it to colony.
Yeah, in 1980, according to the story here, it incorporated as colony.
Oh, it incorporated.
Yeah,
so, wow.
It's a real town. The residents commuted to Cullman via carpool, taking care to leave town before sunset. It had its own elementary school, but before federal law forced the desegregation of the Cullman County schools in the 70s, its children had to attend high school in another county. According to a recent newspaper report, Johnson told a meeting of officials from 7 communities in the county this January the horror stories about Cullman's racism that she's heard as a youngster in other parts of the state. Dealing with the lingering negative image continues to be a problem. And indeed, to this day, we just had a phone call. That's why we're even talking about this. Somebody brought this up. So, I mean, it's not unbelievable.
And whether or not in a generation or two these signs have existed or been seen, it still brings up the question of, like, okay, libertarian, what do you want to do about these horrible, horrible people?
Which is why I think that guy called in.
If you are not willing to use force against these people for having views that you think are abominable, then what do you do with these horrible people? And it's
live
a fair
and let
question.
live is what a libertarian would do.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't have to deal with them. I don't have to buy their stuff.
Exactly.
I don't have to go there.
Exactly. Now, I'm not suggesting that we reward them for being awful people.
No.
I'm absolutely suggesting that we exile them from our own civilization and do not trade with these people.
Right.
Let them starve. Because here's the facts. The facts are human beings need each other to live.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot survive on our own.
We are a
need
social animal.
Other people to gather resources and bring them to us to trade.
Not only that,
or we die.
Not only that, I mean, you're talking about the division of labor that helps humanity move on and advance and so on. But if you take people away from people, it's generally considered torture. Solitary confinement in prison is considered a form of torture because people need to be around people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the fact of the matter is also that we're in competition with each other. So if every town around this town has no problem getting people to trade, has no problem getting people to come work there, has no problem getting tourists to, see the pretty nature around here, if every town around them has no trouble with that, and this one town has plenty of trouble, it's going to dry up and float away. Like, you cannot maintain anything when it comes to human civilization without the acceptance of other people.
Do exiled ideologies die? That's the question.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, throughout history, there have been so many ideologies that because they were not acceptable to the people around them, they eventually just die out.
Well, has that happened in Coleman, or is it still the way it's always been in recent decades?
Or Illinois, for that matter.
Well, yeah. The number here is 603-283-6160. You can join us on Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 15th through the 18th for the 7th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out in 2022. For 2023, we're going back to where it all started, the weekend before PorcFest. ForkFest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 15th through the 18th. You can find out more at the unofficial website forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the ForkFest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the ForkFest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 15th through the 18th. forkfest.party. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, Mark at freetalklive.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, Ian.
Peakless Mountaineer.
The Captain.
Also, bullionmax.com is where you can go to get diversified into gold and silver, your precious metals source. You don't have to talk to a salesperson. You'll just get your precious metal shipped to you, fully insured directly to your home. And
precious.
You can, some of them are really, really nice. You can get your gold backs from bullionmax.com. In fact, they're now giving away, we'd originally told you about the silver starter kit, which is the 5 ounces of silver that they are pricing at employee pricing to give people an incentive to getting into gold and silver. And now they're sweetening the deal even more. So good things come to those who wait. You get a free gold back included with your silver starter kit when you go to bullionmax.com/FTL. Now look, there's only one of these available per household, so there's a limit on this. It's an introductory thing. They just want to get people involved in alternatives and precious metals. So if you've never had a gold back before, they're beautiful interchangeable gold money that you can actually carry in your wallet. I do this. Captain, I think you do this as well.
I do as well, yeah.
Peakless?
On and off.
Yeah.
Yep.
I make it a habit of having gold backs with me because they're an amazing outreach tool. They're an amazing conversation starter about real money.
They are kick-ass.
And they're real gold. So you get to see you get to feel this, you get to look at it, you get to hold it when you order one of these silver starter kits. Of course, you can just order gold backs as well through Bullion Max. But go to bullionmax.com/FTL to go to it's a page that'll tell you all about the silver starter kit and the free gold back. That's bullionmax.com/FTL. And I think if you hang around on the page long enough, there's it took me like 10 seconds or whatever, there's a pop-up that comes up that you can get registered. You give them your emails, they can send you stuff, and they'll put you in a contest where you could win one of the new silverbacks.
I was going to mention that after you were done with the ad read, but since you usurped it, I did sign up for that.
So did I.
Yeah, because I'm like, oh, silverback, that sounds awesome.
That sounds like a gorilla.
One.
It's gorgeous. It's actually a dragon in this case, Peakless.
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen the image
I haven't.
on it, but it's gorgeous. It looks gorgeous. I mean, how could it not be, right? We know the quality of the gold back, so I mean, we know what to expect. But if you've never seen the actual gold back, you really ought to take advantage of this deal. bullionmax.com/FTL to get your silver starter kits. By the way, for those that are curious about the silverback, a lot of people have asked about the silverback, like, oh, well, you got a goldback. Why isn't there a silverback? Well, now there is, but it's really only like a proof of concept thing because it doesn't make economic sense.
Right.
The silverback is 1/1000th of an ounce of silver, and you can do the math. That's like 2 cents worth of silver. It's an expensive process to make this thing, so it doesn't make sense to spend an extra $1 on top of 2 cents to make something that's you're never going to spend it. So it's just a collector's item, basically. They made 10,000 of them. They're only given apparently to Bullion Max to do this giveaway. So that's the only way you can get this for now. Maybe they're going to do another run or something like that.
Bullion Max probably sponsored the thing.
Something like that, yes. But they did it to show that it could be done.
I would love to own one. Are you kidding me?
I would too, just because they look really cool. All right, so check them out, bullionmax.com/FTL. We've been talking about these urban legends, and I brought one up to you guys during the break. We'll get back to the Chinese chip story here in a moment, but it made me this whole thing about the sundown town, and I'm not claiming that's an urban legend, but there's certainly like some that seem to surround that particular history of that town, Coleman, Alabama.
Yeah.
But I remember 20-something years ago, a particular urban legend going around in Southwest Florida where I was living that said that the local sheriff's department had put a billboard up that said, if you think it's bad now, wait until some month. I remember October, and apparently I'm not the only one who remembered this because Snopes.com has a whole story about this particular rumor that was going around in approximately 2002, somewhere in that range. And it's just kind of like one of those interesting urban legends. So,
what was it the sign supposedly said?
Quote, if you think it's bad now, wait till October.
What does that mean?
Meaning, well, it was supposedly.
We're really gonna crack down on you then.
Supposedly, the wording that I heard about was if you think it's dry now, not that if you think it's bad. So that's a slang term that marijuana users would use to describe the status of the market after like a big bust would go down. Okay, well, it dries up the weed in town. Yeah, it's weed related. So the claim is that the DEA was erecting billboards announcing an upcoming crackdown on the drug supply. Apparently, there doesn't seem to be a lot of marijuana available right now, something important to a select few. Now, people are talking about signs popping up along U.S. highways, supposedly put up by the DEA, that read something along the lines of, if you think it's bad now, wait till October, and presumably there was like a marijuana leaf on it or some sort of thing to indicate what they were referring to, implying the DEA have found some way to choke off a huge percentage of marijuana traffic, and they're rubbing it in drug users' faces. In September of 2002, those who frequented areas of the internet devoted to pleasures of marijuana found themselves confronted with a persistent rumor involving billboards supposedly placed along roadsides by the DEA. Although the location changed from telling to telling, the gist of the rumor remained the same. The message proclaimed by those charged with drug enforcement trumpeted, if you think it's dry now, wait till October. Folks would claim that they knew Folks would claim someone they knew had seen the sign, or even that they themselves had seen it. And that's how it always came to me, was that it was somebody said they knew somebody who had seen it. Though the call
Never anyone that you could ask, where?
Right.
Because I want a picture of this thing.
My cousin Bill said that he saw it the other night.
Right. Though the call for photographs of the infamous billboard went out, it invariably went unanswered. The sign was said to have been sighted in Minnesota, or Ohio, or Virginia, or near Tampa, which is where I was living, or near Houston, or Detroit.
Man, now I want to put this sign up just to mess with you. Like, put it up
20 years
and
later.
then immediately take it down.
Or in Detroit. Everywhere, in fact, where folks who smoke marijuana were nervous about it. In other words, all across the USA.
Right.
But there wasn't anything to it. The DEA hasn't been posting those signs, nor is it ever likely to.
Why would they?
Given there's no upside to warning users that hard times are just around the corner.
Maybe that's part of like the Mandela effect, right? You know, a lot of people swear it was there, but there's no evidence.
Well, when I'm pursuing a burglar, I like to bang the drums as loudly as possible while I do it.
This story reminds me of one of the most poorly thought out, I guess it was an advertising campaign for DUI, drunk driving, right? The state of Washington was going to increase their patrols for whatever period of time, right? The holiday, whatever it was. So they had this new campaign, and it went, get hammered, get nailed, right? And like, it was so funny, like they had to change it like immediately to drive hammered, get nailed, right? So like, you first saw it and you laughed and you told all your friends about it. They're like, I saw it too, yeah, it was funny. And then the next time you saw it, they changed it. They're like, drive hammered, get nailed. I'm like, the first one was the best.
Did they get pictures of it? When was this?
Oh, it's 20 years ago.
Okay, so that's the thing. It's like 20 years ago, again, 2002, digital cameras were just kind of coming out at that time. They probably weren't widely spread. Cell phones didn't have cameras on them yet, basically, at that point.
Right.
So, if you took a picture, you had to spend money to develop that picture. So was it really worth it to take that picture? Now, so like telling people, as this article points out, in advance that a big crackdown was coming would be like telling potheads to visit your local dealer and stock up now. So it's like unbelievable. But here's the thing. Those encountering the rumor for the first time in 2002 didn't know the tale had been around for more than a decade. In fact, there's evidence from going back all the way to 1991 of this. We're coming up.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow with the Week in Review. This week, the United Kingdom heard another resignation speech from a Conservative Prime Minister. Liz Truss is the fourth leader to step down since 2016. She lasted just 6 weeks in office, the shortest tenure of any Prime Minister. The Conservative Party is beginning the process of choosing a new leader, who will also become the next UK Prime Minister. The winner will be chosen by October 28th, and Conservative MP Robert Halfon says the party has to get it right.
Either rightly, in my view, we face electoral oblivion, or we take a last chance from the public and make sure that we get a leader, one who will be a unifier, also that will govern with integrity.
Throughout the week, Russian missiles have struck key pieces of Ukrainian infrastructure. The country's President Volodymyr Zelensky says 30% of power stations have been destroyed. Kyiv, the US and its allies say many of the attacks were conducted using Iranian-made drones, a charge both Moscow and Tehran have vehemently denied. Ukraine's called on its partners to send more air defence systems. Germany delivered the first of 4 of the systems to Kyiv earlier this month, a move welcomed by President Zelensky, who says more of the defence technology is needed to protect civilians from attacks. From Berlin, Trent Murray has more.
The German-made air defence system was handed over by Berlin in recent weeks to Kyiv following Russia's aerial bombardment of multiple cities. The system is designed to protect a medium-sized city and can intercept incoming rockets or missiles at a range of up to 40 kilometres. Zelensky stressed, though, that Ukraine needs more of the anti-aircraft systems in order to try and create an air shield around other civilian areas. He specifically called out France, Italy and the United States for further support. Trent Murray, Berlin.
The US House Committee investigating the January 6th attack on the US Capitol issued a subpoena to former President Donald Trump on Friday. And as US correspondent Rachel Silverman reports, Trump could face legal challenges if he doesn't comply.
The subpoena requires the former president to turn over documents by November 4th and to appear for a deposition on November 14th. The House committee says its hearings presented overwhelming evidence that Trump personally orchestrated and oversaw a multi-part effort to overturn the 2020 election and to obstruct the peaceful transition of power. Trump could face legal charges if he fails to comply with the subpoena. He has reportedly suggested to aides that he might be willing to testify to the House panel if he could do so live. Rachel Silverman, San Francisco.
And a US judge has sentenced former Trump advisor Steve Bannon to 4 months in jail for contempt of Congress. Bannon refused an order to testify before the committee investigating the January 6th attack. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Yep, it's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here on this live Saturday show. The number is 603-283-6160. Do you have a favorite urban legend that you want to share? You're welcome to join us here, 603-283-6160. Or is there an urban legend or that you thought was an urban legend that actually turned out to be true? And is there a way to actually prove that? Anyway, feel free to call in, share your stories here with you in the studio. You've got Ian.
Peakless Mountaineer.
The Reverend Captain Kickass is also here.
We were talking about the urban legend. Well, what first started this out was somebody called up about one, which wasn't, I don't think it really was an urban legend based on some of the research that I was doing here. The town of Coleman, Alabama was sort of known as a sundown town, but the stories about some of the offensive signage that was put up around the town may or may not have been true. And that led me to think about something that I remember from being in the Tampa Bay area, which was rumors that were persistent about a sign that was allegedly on some major highway that said something to the effect of, if you think it's dry now, it was like a picture of a marijuana leaf or something. If you think it's dry now, wait till October. And this was just being passed around all over the place in sort of the drug underground. Never was verified in any way, shape, or form. No one could ever claim to have seen it themselves. It was always hearsay. I knew somebody who saw it. My Uncle Jimmy saw it or something like that. And as it turns out, according to Snopes.com, the people that were passing this story around in 2002 didn't know that it was already being passed around a decade before, from a post on an internet news group in 1991. Now, not a whole lot of people had the internet in 1991, but news groups were a thing on the internet back then. Not so much these days, but back then this was before there was a World Wide Web of graphics, right? Like there was a web, but it was all text. And so internet news groups were a way to pass messages around. And somebody wrote, quote, "That reminds me, a friend of mine was in L.A. 2 months ago. He said he saw stenciled spray paint signs on some inner city streets that read, quote, 'If you think it's bad now, wait until September, -DEA.'" So this thing's been going around for some time. Now, I suspect it's kind of dried up in recent years, considering how many people have access to cell phones and could easily, disprove this particular rumor today as opposed to 2002. The DEA billboard did surface over the years since then, sometimes altered a bit. This is from the... I don't know if it doesn't cite its source. This past week, the Melbourne Cocoa Beach DEA stumbled onto a large quantity of marijuana, and the stumbled bums made a bust. They broke their arms, patting themselves on the back, posting signs all over town with a marijuana leaf with a red circle and line through it, and underneath it said, "If you think it's dry now, just wait till the DEA finishes their job." This one was cited in 1998. And so, again, similar rumors, just with slightly different changes. Why this tale appears at various times is anyone's guess, but it's possible the 2002 outbreak was at least part attributable to the dry, hot summer that burned off all manner of crops across North America, not just wacky tobacco. Locally grown marijuana would have been harder to come by during those stultifying summer months, which would make rumors about law enforcement-induced shortages all that much more believable. And, of course, they always said that the harvest for cannabis was in the fall season down towards Christmas time. They would call it like Christmas bud or whatever, and then the best marijuana would come out around Christmas time. So that might have been what they were working towards.
I remember Christmas bud.
But it does, yeah, exactly. I do too. But it does make you wonder about this. I mean, did the DEA actually start this rumor? And if it wasn't the DEA, who did? Where does this stuff come from?
Oh, where do any of these things come from? Someone has a conversation, it gets heard the wrong way, or someone decides that they actively want to start a rumor just to see if it catches on.
What if it was the marijuana growers themselves to increase demand?
Just to try to get people to buy it up?
Yeah. It's brilliant marketing from that perspective.
I mean, we are talking about a bunch of people who probably get high and think up wacky ideas. So,
Like you were saying, oh my gosh, the DA is going to crack down in October. We better stock up now, right?
So, yeah, if you've got an urban legend you want to share, feel free, dial in here at 603-283-6160.
I wish our other sometimes co-host Matt was here for this one, but the Dog Man.
What's that?
This is the sort of Midwestern Sasquatch, but it's a werewolf kind of thing.
Ooh,
and
spooky.
Being from Wisconsin, it's
You've
got a
heard
home.
this? You've heard this one?
It's got a home in Wisconsin,
Well, no.
Michigan, and there's another state too that's involved with the Dogman legend. But instead of being a Sasquatch, it's more of a werewolf. It's like sort of a Dogman.
But on two legs?
Is this someone that, like, it's a person and then they turn into the Dogman, or is it something that's always a Dogman, like a Sasquatch?
That's a good question.
Because, I mean, like, that's the difference really between, like, your Wolfman.
Right, are we talking about Teen
Sasquatch.
Wolf here, or are we talking about something that's always that?
Well, so it's also known as the Beast of Bray Road, because that's apparently where most of the sightings have been on this road called Bray, B-R-A-Y. A hairy humanoid with canine features, the Beast of Bray Road has been sighted in Wisconsin dating back to 1936 on a rural road outside of Elkhorn, Wisconsin. Most recent sightings in the 1980s and 90s placed the creature in Racine, Walworth, and Jefferson counties. Those who have seen the beast describe him as eating or hunting and scavenging. Also known as man wolf, bear wolf, and indigenous dogman, it's said to be around 6 feet tall with gray and brown fur. Its face resembles that of a wolf with shiny yellow eyes and pointed ears. Its body, though furry, looks like a muscular man. The creature is said to run and walk on all four legs or just its hind legs, and has been spied sitting on its haunches and kneeling like a man. Some people believe it's a werewolf, others believe that it's a Bigfoot, and some believe that it's a yet unidentified species. Though it has never attacked anyone, some witnesses claim that it has acted aggressively, running at them and jumping on their vehicles. Some researchers consider the Beast of Bray Road to be identical to a kind of Wisconsin Bigfoot that locals call the Bluff Monster, or Eddie. Others, including many Native Americans, believe it to be the Wendigo, which has often been spied in Minnesota. Others believe that it has simply been misidentified and is a wolf, a bear, or a large feral dog.
When did you hear about this? Like as a kid, was it one of those things that kind of passed around?
So I vaguely recall mentions of the Dogman by like some of my family members, probably when they were like, hunting time and like, okay, well, let's bring the kid, kind of a thing. And I got drug along, and I just vaguely remember hearing mentions of the Dogman. It's like, and I didn't pay any attention to it because I'm like, oh, these guys are talking about, crazy adult stuff, And then there was a band called King's X out of the late 80s and early 90s. And they had a couple of singles on MTV and that kind of a thing. And then they released an album called Dogman. And a friend of mine from Wisconsin, he was like, dude, can you believe King's X made a album called Dogman? And I'm like, tell me why this is significant. He's because of the legend of Dogman, dude. Right? And I was like, oh, I didn't realize. And so I go and I listen to the song, and I'm like, yeah, okay. It's basically the legend of Dogman, which we've just described here. So
is it a good song?
It's a pretty good song, yeah.
I'm just fascinated by Beowulf, because the only thing scarier than a werewolf is a bear wolf.
Right, yeah. Man, bear, pig.
Right? Seriously, my first thought.
So yeah, like
Beowulf, man, bear, pig.
And there's several of these types of things, right? What's the Mexican one? El Chupacabra.
Oh, okay.
Is that the Mexican? And then there's Sasquatch,
that
Bigfoot.
was what I was thinking
there's
about.
Dogman, right? There's a couple other ones too.
People have seen this thing, hunting or eating. It's like, oh, so it's Chupacabra,
right?
Which is kind of a different sort of a myth than a werewolf, because like the whole werewolf thing is that they're human until the curse takes hold.
Full moon or something like that.
To me, the interesting thing about the Dogman is that not only has it supposedly been witnessed in like modern times, but it goes back to the Native Americans. They had tales of said Dogman.
Native Americans had tales?
Tales, not TAI.
Okay. It's just making sure you hadn't converted to Mormonism or something.
Not yet. But yeah, the legends, aren't just like modern era legends. It has its roots in Native American culture, before settlers even came around to the Midwestern area. So
people have always needed a spooky story to tell around a campfire, right?
Indeed.
Yeah. If you want to tell us about your favorite urban legend, you're welcome to join us at 603-283-6160. You can bring up whatever is on your mind, and I'm looking at photos of the Dogman right now. There's one of them that's like, it's really weird looking. There's it's like a picture of what appears to be a dog walking on its hind legs, but its arms look bony. I'll show it to you, Captain. You can see if you've seen this one before. More coming up here in a moment. You can join us and share your thoughts. And we can still talk about the Chinese chip manufacturers and so much more on Free Talk Live. Do you prefer to listen to Free Talk Live on your schedule on demand? You can find the link to our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com, which features the daily digest of our radio show 7 days a week. Just drop our RSS feed into your favorite podcast client or subscribe to us on the large platforms if you prefer, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartMedia, Spotify, and Stitcher. All the links are at feeds.freetalklive.com. If the daily digests aren't enough for you and you really don't want to miss a moment of Free Talk Live, you can always sign up for our AMPS Patreon at amps.freetalklive.com for just $5 a month, and you'll get the full radio show without recorded commercials. Plus, you'll help us advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live. That's amps.freetalklive.com to join AMPS, or feeds.freetalklive.com to get our main podcast, or find us on the major podcast platforms.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Phones are open here, whether you want to call in about your favorite urban legend, which is where the show has gone here at this moment. We started out with Chinese chip manufacturing restrictions. I don't know if we finished that story or not. There's more? Is there more?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll get in. We'll dig into that one a little bit more. And then there's also something about county employees now getting qualified immunity. The captain has a story about that. The phones are open, though, and you can bring up absolutely anything you want to discuss. By the way, the Ballad of the Crypto 6 is a documentary film that is in production. Well, they're trying to be in production. They're looking to raise some money, and they're actually over 50% of the way.
Was there a second
producer
purchased?
There was somebody who threw in some Bitcoin. Apparently, a Bitcoin whale came in, and
That's
I
awesome.
presume he's a whale. Gentleman was called out, his name was given out. I think it was XBT3D on Twitter was his handle. He contributed big time over at Ballad of the Crypto 6 with the numeral 6.com. There's an Indiegogo, but if you look at the Indiegogo, it only shows like 23%. That's because they don't take Bitcoin, so the Bitcoin's counting, but it's not counting towards the Indiegogo. So it really is over 50% thanks to XBT3D and to everybody else who's contributed. You can become a backer and earn perks that go from T-shirts to possibly even hosting Free Talk Live, dining with your favorite co-hosts here. It's Ballad of the Crypto 6 with the numeral 6.com. If you want the story to be told in documentary form about the Crypto 6, which is the group of Free Talk Live hosts, including myself, who had their homes raided in March of 2021 by the FBI. I'm currently going to trial on that, which may be as soon as December 6th. Wow. So we'll see. We'll, of course, continue to update you as that develops. But there's already a 9-minute long trailer that you can watch to give you a taste of what this thing might end up being like. If it is produced, and you can help make that happen. Ballad of the Crypto 6 with the numeral 6. We go to Major Payne on the line in Michigan. Go ahead, Major.
All right, I had to dump you off speaker.
Good.
Thank you. Yes, definitely good to be off speaker. What's on your mind tonight?
All right, so I don't know if you guys have heard about this. I think I might save this one for Beard Talk. There was a couple of rustlers from college that was out elk hunting, I believe, in Wyoming, and they just had to deal hand to hand with a grizzly bear.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Anyway,
isn't that hand to paw?
Okay, claw to tooth.
Okay.
Anyway, so I have had dealings with Squatch.
Really?
Never face to face, but I've log knocked. I've heard them howling. I've answered them back, and they have a particular canter. And one time I answered one back 3 times on his particular canter, and he responded to me all 3. And then
Well, how do you know it was Bigfoot?
There is.
How do you know it wasn't like your drunk buddy?
Made by man.
I'm sorry. What were you saying there, Major? I didn't hear your answer.
There's a sound that cannot be made by man. I mean, you'll have howling assholes around the campfire, but they're all making different pitches and wails and whatnot, right? This is guttural and deep. But anyway, that's not what I called you for. You guys wanted to hear spooky stuff.
Well, I just want to hear urban legends. It doesn't have urban legends don't have to be spooky necessarily. They just have to be unprovable.
This one, I think I have actually figured out. There is a very large swamp south of the town I grew up on, bordered by Rawsonville Road and Belleville Lake and whatnot. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but I called him one time and I told my story about when I was walking along the edge of a lazy creek or a river or something, and there was bubbles coming up out of the dirt, in under the water.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, what are these bubbles? And I told him, these turtle farts. Well, it's methane gas, right? So it's rising up in this giant swamp bog. And the theory I have is when the fog settles and the gas rises, it creates these pockets. And then on a full moon night, you will have the reflection of the moon coming up through these gas bubbles. They created floating, glowing monsters. People went out there for 50 years looking at the ghosts in the swamp.
Huh. It's a nice theory.
I finally figured it out.
Yeah, because light does do some weird things when it tries to pass through gas.
All right, Major, thanks for the call tonight, man. Appreciate the story, and sounds like he's going to be calling back in later on for Beard Talk Live.
Oh, yeah, we're doing a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Tonight it is back for episode 10.
Yeah.
Episode 10 tonight.
We're in double digits now.
That's a big deal.
That's episode X for those of you counting in Roman.
You can tune it in on our video streaming sites. So you can follow our Odyssey channel at video.freetalklive.com. Be sure you subscribe to that. But you can also bookmark the streaming page itself, which is watch.freetalklive.com. And then you can watch or just put it in the background and listen to it as well. Tonight, starting at 10:30 Eastern Time, it will be the Captain and Peakless Mountaineer and possibly Nobody as well, I believe, tonight. And they will be unrestricted, unfettered by the pesky FCC.
Censor-free.
And all of their restrictions. So you'll be able to hear that tonight, 10:30 Eastern on our video streaming. And if you're on Twitch or the other ones that we're on, you'll see it there as well. So once again, it's watch.freetalklive.com. Let's go to the phones and continue. David in New Mexico, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, Dogman in Wisconsin is a Ho-Chunk Indian pranking your ass.
Okay. Huh? You think it's an Indian?
Yeah, he's getting revenge on the white man, pranking y'all, making himself up to a dogman creature and running around in the woods and fooling y'all.
Okay. Do you have any urban legends down there in New Mexico?
Yes, I got urban legend. Government is legit.
That's a pretty good one.
Now, but that legend is also suburban. Even agrarian.
I got proof. You know, you gotta know your enemy. So I've been studying this government thing that's pretending to be legit for a long time, trying to disprove the legend, and I think I got it. And I've been successfully using that Generation justice.org blog or whatever on that judge, John J. Romero Jr., the one that's related to M. Monica Zamora, the other judge in New Mexico. But one of the other know your enemy facts that I've gathered out of this blog, this article from Generation Justice, is that I previously noted how Judge John Jay, the only private sector job he ever seemed to have, according to that article, was he worked for a department store, apparently, because he says he was in the lunchroom watching the lawyer politician crooks on TV. Another fact I gathered from that is that he came from northern New Mexico, which I've told you for years is well known to be the center of gangster activity in the state of New Mexico, going all the way back 500 years.
Okay.
And an interesting, the movie Ben-Hur was written by Lew Wallace. Lew Wallace was a territorial governor in the state of in the territory of New Mexico before it was a state. And a quote from him, a quote from Lew Wallace was that things that work, talking about government, things that work elsewhere do not work in New Mexico.
Why?
To successfully govern is what he was talking about, because of the whatever the demographic here is, things just don't work. And it was another fact is that the United States government precluded any native-born New Mexican from being a territorial governor. They always shipped in a carpetbagger because they were afraid that if they used a native-born New Mexican, they'd get a gangster, and that the territory would go to hell.
Turns out that's what all they are anyways, meaning all government people. They're all gangsters.
Yes, true. It's not an urban legend. It's true.
That's a fact. Thank you, David, for the call tonight. Appreciate it. Let's go to Sarah in New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live, Sarah.
Oh, yes. So I just want to say that we might have a good chance in New Mexico to send all 3 Congress people to Washington because we district the Southeast. So it favors the Democrats.
They're not all Democrats right now?
We got Yvette Herrell. She's a Republican. She won by the skin of her teeth.
Oh, okay.
But this time,
that's pretty hard to do as a Republican in New Mexico. As I understand it, it's a pretty blue state, as they say.
Yeah, but that's the part that's really close to Texas. They believe in the petrol dollar. It's I guess the Texans, they're so close to Texas, the Southeast. Yeah, that's what does it.
So you're saying the Democrats redrew the voter precincts or whatever, and they gerrymandered, and they made it so the Democrats are going to win. Yeah, that's pretty standard. I mean, that's kind of how these things go. Thank you for the call tonight, Sarah. The number here is 603-283-6160. I'm so looking forward to the day when we're no longer hitched to New Mexico and Texas and California, because New Hampshire has declared its independence from all this insanity. Hour number 3 is coming up. This is Free Talk Live. Inflation, a sidelined labor force, and ever-increasing interest rates. It's the perfect storm for pushing the U.S. economy over the edge. Savvy investors are diversifying into gold and silver with BullionMax.com. You can buy direct from BullionMax.com without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals will ship fully insured directly to your home. Free Talk Live listeners can now order one of BullionMax's most popular products, the Goldback. Now in stock, but supplies are going fast. To get your Goldbacks, go to BullionMax.com/FTL. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow with the Week in Review. This week, the United Kingdom heard another resignation speech from a Conservative Prime Minister. Liz Truss is the fourth leader to step down since 2016. She lasted just 6 weeks in office, the shortest tenure of any Prime Minister. The Conservative Party is beginning the process of choosing a new leader, who will also become the next UK Prime Minister. The winner will be chosen by October 28th, and Conservative MP Robert Halfon says the party has to get it right.
Either rightly, in my view, we face electoral oblivion, or we take a last chance from the public and make sure that we get a leader, one who will be a unifier, also that will govern with integrity.
Throughout the week, Russian missiles have struck key pieces of Ukrainian infrastructure. The country's President Volodymyr Zelensky says 30% of power stations have been destroyed. Kyiv, the US and its allies say many of the attacks were conducted using Iranian-made drones, a charge both Moscow and Tehran have vehemently denied. Ukraine's called on its partners to send more air defence systems. Germany delivered the first of 4 of the systems to Kyiv earlier this month, a move welcomed by President Zelensky, who says more of the defence technology is needed to protect civilians from attacks. From Berlin, Trent Murray has more.
The German-made air defence system was handed over by Berlin in recent weeks to Kyiv following Russia's aerial bombardment of multiple cities. The system is designed to protect a medium-sized city and can intercept incoming rockets or missiles at a range of up to 40 kilometres. Zelensky stressed, though, that Ukraine needs more of the anti-aircraft systems in order to try and create an air shield around other civilian areas. He specifically called out France, Italy and the United States for further support. Trent Murray, Berlin.
The US House Committee investigating the January 6th attack on the US Capitol issued a subpoena to former President Donald Trump on Friday. And as US correspondent Rachel Silverman reports, Trump could face legal challenges if he doesn't comply.
The subpoena requires the former president to turn over documents by November 4th and to appear for a deposition on November 14th. The House committee says its hearings presented overwhelming evidence that Trump personally orchestrated and oversaw a multi-part effort to overturn the 2020 election and to obstruct the peaceful transition of power. Trump could face legal charges if he fails to comply with the subpoena. He has reportedly suggested to aides that he might be willing to testify to the House panel if he could do so live. Rachel Silverman, San Francisco.
And a US judge has sentenced former Trump advisor Steve Bannon to 4 months in jail for contempt of Congress. Bannon refused an order to testify before the committee investigating the January 6th attack. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, the crisis in Britain's governing Conservative Party after the resignation on Thursday of Liz Truss, destined now to become the country's shortest-serving Prime Minister in history. With candidates saddling up for yet another Conservative Party leadership race, the face of economic policies unveiled by Truss and then days later reversed hangs in the balance. Sir Anthony Selden is a political scholar in the UK whose book, The Impossible Office, charts the history of a variety of prime ministers. Liz Truss, he says, dug her own political grave.
It's totally of her own making. In a way, how dare she come in at a moment of such volatility in the country and do something which so many people said would have catastrophic consequences. Had she gained people's trust and confidence and respect and then introduced it, as Margaret Thatcher did with her trade union reforms rather than blasting in, trying to do it all in one go. She could have taken her time and done the things that many people wanted to see being done and perhaps should well have been done and long overdue, and she'd have got it through without this massive reaction.
Who will follow her? Party grandees say we'll know the answer on October the 28th, but it's far from clear that another leadership contest will resolve the turmoil within the Conservative Party. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
FSN is an independent source of news for TV, radio and digital networks worldwide. You can find more of our minute-by-minute updates on Twitter. Follow us there at Feature Story. And we have a wealth of audio and video stories from our global news bureaus on Facebook. You can find us there by following Feature Story News. Stay tuned for further updates right here. But for now, that's the latest Feature Story News. William Denslow reporting.
With job numbers near historic lows, Forbes magazine has released a list of tips for finding a job, all of which involve witnessing an employer murder someone. Forbes says despite the grim economy, employers are still hungry for talented workers who know how important it is to forget about whatever they think they saw or heard.
So me and a couple of friends were out smoking at the Viaduct the other day, and we saw this really rich guy in a Mercedes pull up in his car and drop nothing. Now I'm the Vice President of International Development.
According to Goldman Sachs CEO Lloyd Blankfein, we had a great quarter and hired hundreds of new employees. I haven't done anything wrong, and all my employees will tell you the same thing because that's the deal we had. But the article warns that stumbling onto a coke-fueled CEO strangling a prostitute isn't a foolproof method for finding work, because employers are just as likely to murder you as they are to hire you.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the third hour of the show. Live Saturday edition. Phones are open. If you want to join us, you can bring up anything you want. We've talked about the Chinese trying to get their hands on an EUV machine. What is that? Well, it's a fancy, expensive, $120 million machine with over 100,000 parts that is sold by one company in the Netherlands. ASML is the company's name. And they are being prohibited by the Dutch government and the United States. So it's under pressure, apparently, from the U.S. The Dutch government is preventing ASML from shipping one of these machines, which can make computer chips, basically. More advanced computer chips, because it had predecessors, and China's had those predecessors, but not this one. And it was Peakless Mountaineer. You brought this story to the table. We were talking about that, and then we ended up getting into urban legends for some amount of time.
Somehow we morphed into Dogman.
Well, we had a caller that talked about this sundown town.
Right.
And that doesn't seem to be really on the level. Seems to be an urban legend.
Well, it depends who you ask. Apparently, back in the day, it was... But there were some questions about whether or not there were signage that were around, and some people say there were.
And is there a downtown of Sundown Town?
Maybe. I don't want to go to find out, though. I'll tell you that.
Especially not after sundown.
So let's get back, though, into the Chinese restriction story. You've got Chinese manufacturers that have certain chip-making machines, but they don't have the newest technology, apparently. And
and apparently one of the big issues with this is that the advanced chip-making technology is necessary for smartphones. So, we get a lot of stories out of how China is making all the smartphones, and apparently not anymore if this continues. And it's made some waves. It made a response of a woman by the name of Mao Ning, is the foreign ministry spokesperson of China, and she says it. Let's see. Out of the need to maintain its sci-tech hegemony, the U.S. abuses export control measures to maliciously block and suppress Chinese companies. Now, I just wanted to say...
That sounds exactly like what's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, she's not wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and so what strikes me about this is, like, number one, why are you poking the bear here? Like, you are already on the verge of nuclear annihilation with your proxy war with Russia. that wasn't enough.
Nope.
No, we also need to provoke another world power with nuclear weapons. Let's go ahead and make sure that we're having an economic war with China.
Yeah, people aren't paying enough money for energy yet, so let's go ahead and make things worse by bringing China into a conflict.
Right? And that's one of the things where, like, if we get energy to work, which is really just a matter of getting government out of the way, because, like, I mean, with thorium reactors, we could have most of our energy needs met very easily.
And decentralized.
Yes, and decentralized. But that, of course, would
safe.
Yes,
Yeah.
decentralized, safe, functional, cheap.
Right.
That, of course, would not put all of the money and power into the hands of the oil companies and all of their subsidiaries, because
their politicians who are in their pockets.
Yeah. Because, I mean, we tend not to think about the connection between the two, but pharmaceutical companies are really an extension of the oil companies.
Now, why is that?
Now, this is because pharmaceuticals are, by and large, petrochemicals. So in order to synthesize any of these chemicals, they have to use petroproducts in order to do so. So they take various kinds of oil and oil derivatives and throw away products from the refinement process and things like that. And because they have spent enough time to figure out how to synthesize this chemical and this chemical and this chemical out of these substances, is why they use these substances to make all of the, whatever pill that you're taking.
Wow. I did not know that. I knew that the processing of oil resulted in the creation of plastics, but I didn't know that they were pumping pills out too from that.
Yep. Yeah, and
Wow.
the fact that the pharmaceutical companies have been an extension of the oil companies goes back for over 100 years.
Right, which explains why, with the recent events where the governments overreacted to this thing known as COVID, why it was so easy for the United States to go from sort of a state oil sort of thing to a state pharmaceutical complex.
Yeah, sure.
Now, because they're kind of the same thing. So they're all sort of in bed with each other, and it was a real easy shift for the United States to sort of become, more in bed with the pharmaceutical companies than they are with the oil companies.
Yep. And two other major important things about oil companies. Number one is that oil and access to oil is absolutely what backs up the U.S. dollar. Like, it is at this point the only major thing that really backs the U.S. dollar is that OPEC, which still has like a significant portion of the world's access to oil, will only trade to any country in U.S. dollars.
For now.
Because
didn't OPEC just cut production despite Biden begging them to hold off for a month?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's not the friendliest thing that they could have done with Biden. Right?
Indeed, it is not. And they are currently talking to China about the possibility of being able to trade of countries throughout the world. Because that's the thing. Like, once you crack the seal, like, it's done. It's over with. So once OPEC starts trading even to China
in
for
renminbi,
for the Chinese yuan, once it starts trading to China, okay, well, I mean, it's going to be hard to tell other countries that it won't trade to them in Chinese yuan. And then all these other countries are going to go, oh, well, now that there's two currencies for oil, I better split the difference. And I've got all of this debt in U.S. dollars. I better cash in all this debt and accumulate some debt in Chinese yuan or Russian rubles or whatever it is that they accept.
So the other thing backing the U.S. dollar, and something that the United States government has been riding since Hiroshima and Nagasaki, is the full faith and force of the United States military, hundreds of bases, and they've been riding this wave of fear because the United States has been the only country to drop a nuclear bomb on a couple of places, and so everybody's afraid of that, and so the United States has been able to sort of ride that wave until now, and they're still riding it.
Which is also an extension largely of the U.S. or of the oil companies. Because the thing is that all of, and this has been like a major historical event, was when the world's defense capabilities were moved from coal-based to oil-based. So like all of the ships that were used for war moved from coal-based to oil-based, and okay, well, now we've got to have a world war because, that means that everything's focused on oil, and well, gee, Germany doesn't have its own colonies, doesn't have this access to oil, but what it does have is the ability to engineer railways down to the Middle East. So they were going to complete that railway, and then we had to start World War I to make sure that didn't happen. But yeah, I mean, so like oil is not only the fuel for the vast majority of military technology. It's also you have to think about the tremendous amount of gun oil that they have to go through when they're firing these things constantly. When there is thousands and thousands and thousands of all sorts of different machinery that you need to continue the shelling that's going on all of the time. So this consumes a tremendous amount of oil. So it is absolutely in the oil company's best interests to make sure that these forever wars continue.
And now they got a new one in Ukraine.
Well,
and no plan in sight to end that one.
And what I think is really fascinating about this, though, is that I mean, I'm very much convinced that we are in the process of moving to digital currency one way or the other. So if that means that if good money takes over, then that means
like
that
Bitcoin.
Yes, exactly. That means that the more chips you have, the more money you have.
The more computer chips?
Exactly. The more computer chips you have, the more processing power you have. The more processing power you have, the more you can mine different cryptocurrencies.
True.
And if cryptocurrencies end up taking over, then that is going to be the most valuable commodity.
Wasn't it really dumb then for China to ban the cryptocurrency mining?
Oh, yeah. Unbelievably stupid. But, I mean, they are still convinced that they can maintain the control that having a central currency gives them.
Right, and they are working towards the CBDC, as they're called, the central bank digital currency. By the way, speaking of, since you brought up Ukraine, the latest headlines there is that Russia has now told all residents of Kherson, which is one of the new parts of Russia, to evacuate immediately. There's more coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Excuse me, is this where I get a license to start a new business?
I wouldn't be hasty. You have to get a license to go out of business, too, you know.
Oh, well, look, I've invented this little anti-gravity machine, see?
Oh, is that why you're walking 2 inches above the floor?
Oh, yes, it's very comfortable. It saves on shoe leather.
Yeah, well, you have to fill out these forms and report to the Human Services Department of Manpower Orientation and register with the Fair Employment Practice Commission, the Wage and Hour Division of the Employment Standards Administration, the State Sales and Income Tax Division, the Internal Revenue Service, and the Social Security Administration of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, and, of course, OSHA.
OSHA? I thought that was a little town in Wisconsin.
You'll find out. Say, floating around like that could be dangerous. Have you checked with the Consumer Product Safety Commission?
Well, not yet.
Come to think of it, you actually are flying, aren't you? Look, you need to go over to the Federal Aviation Administration and the Transportation...
It's very hard to get anything done these days if you're in business, but free enterprise built this country. Think what could happen if we don't keep it free. A public service of this station and the Center for the Defense of Free Enterprise, Bellevue, Washington.
Besides, we just can't have people floating about unregulated, you know.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Join us on the radio here. We're live on this Saturday evening show.
We'll do it live.
We are, and we do it live 7 nights a week here from 7 to 10 at night Eastern Time.
Fact.
If you want to get archives, you can always go to freetalklive.com and grab them up there. And do all kinds of other cool things on our website for free at freetalklive.com. By the way, thanks to Timothy Conrad. Timothy Conard, who is a platinum supporter of our AMPS program. That means that Timothy,
Platinum?
Yeah, he's doing like $25 a month at least. So
thanks,
thank you.
dude.
We only asked for 5. He's doing 5 times that. So thank you, Timothy, for the support there. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. It's a way for you to help us get the word out about freedom to more places, more radio stations. Been doing a lot of calls out to radio stations this week. We've got some end-of-the-year changes that are coming up, and I got to make sure that I get all of them on board and make sure they're all understanding what's going to happen. And I'm really excited about it. We're going to be eliminating a couple of our commercial breaks every single hour. It's probably something we should have done 10 years ago, but hey, no better time than now.
Now with less advertising? Who does that? When's the last time you heard about somebody, I've never heard of anything major broadcast, like, I don't know, sports or something, where they're like, now with less commercials.
We actually did it. We actually cut back, I think, a couple of ads, like, a long time ago. It's been so long I can't even remember all the details, but nothing like this. This is this will be 8 more minutes an hour of talk time for our show, and that's like over a 3-hour show. It's almost another half hour of content.
Yeah.
So it really adds up. It'll be fewer interruptions, fewer commercials overall.
Makes for a better show for you, the listener.
Yeah. I'm sure the internet listeners will still complain, so we're not doing it for you guys, but doing it generally just to kind of make radio more competitive with new media.
I've come to the conclusion that the major purpose of the internet, other than transferring information quickly, is for humans to complain.
Yes. Well, because they're anonymous. It's a lot easier to complain when you can hide behind it.
There might be more complaining going on than actual transmission of information.
Well, I think a big part of why people act the way they do on the internet is because they don't see anyone's face when they read their comments.
Sure.
Honestly, if you had to be subjected to the emotional response that people had to what you said, it would change your behavior immediately.
Well, there's some people who say that when you die, you do have to experience that. that you have you have a life review, but you experience your life through the person that you were interacting with. So anybody that you made happy or that felt happy about something that you said to them, you feel that. Anybody that felt upset or depressed or angry or whatever,
they just plain didn't like you.
Feel that. There's been people have similar stories have come from different parts of the world that have told of these life reviews. People that have near-death experiences have been subjected to them.
There's a movie about that too. It's like out of the mid '80s or something, where this guy dies and he goes to this sort of purgatory, sort of area, and has to go through this life review with some other people before they decide whether he's going to heaven or hell.
It's interesting. We'll see. So the number is 603-283-6160. You can bring up absolutely anything. We've been talking about the Chinese chip situation. If you want to weigh in on that, you're welcome to do so. I mean, look, China manufacturers could obviously come up with their own technology if they want to, but it's not easy, right? Like there's a reason why there's only one company in the world that can make chip making machines.
Right.
It's hard.
I was going to mention this too. Like, oftentimes they say necessity is the mother of invention.
That's
true.
That's true.
If the United States is going to attempt to limit somebody else's capability in manufacturing by sanctioning parts and that kind of thing, or limiting who you can buy from, that kind of thing, I mean, all that's going to happen is somebody's going to innovate their way around it.
They may very well.
Right now, it may take some time. Might have to be some new technology involved, something like that. But like, that's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that this is an effective preparation for the world that is to come, because one way or the other, we are moving into the era of digital money. So either having more chips will mean that you can mine more cryptocurrency, or having more chips will mean that you will have a better chance to hack the central bank of the opposing force. So either way, this is what's going to determine who has what money. So there's that. There's also the fact that every single new technology that we're coming out with, more or less, is based on digital processing.
Yep, microprocessors are necessary for that.
Exactly. So every innovation, especially military innovations, are going to require chips. And the more advanced innovations are going to require advanced chips.
And that's what they're trying to prevent China from being able to manufacture.
That is definitely the official story, is that they're trying to make sure that they don't give China a military advantage. But as always, the elephant in the room that never gets mentioned is the economics of the situation. Like, for two reasons. Number one, it tends to put people to sleep. Mm-hmm. Like, unfortunately, gravely unfortunate for our species, is the fact that most people, most of the time, have no interest in the sort of plumbing behind how they operate in the world. They have an interest in the front-facing interactions. Like, they don't care where their money comes from as long as they get it.
So when you're talking about the economics of this situation, can you summarize what you're referring to without putting our audience to sleep?
Well, yeah, no, exactly what I was saying earlier. So, like, if technology becomes a central bank digital currency system like they're pushing for, then it's going to be...
And they will, because it's total control on the part of the government.
They will try. They will definitely... Like I said, it will go one of two ways. We are headed to an era of digital currency.
Yep.
Now, it can either be a central bank digital currency, and in that case, okay, well, now we have competing countries that are trying to out-hack each other, that are trying to screw each other's economic system up. So if I can ruin your gross domestic product by just screwing up your bank system, that's the easiest way to do it. And if you don't have the chips to out-hack me, then I have a huge advantage. Now, if on the other hand, as I believe it will, we head to a cryptocurrency-based digital economic system, which seems to be the way that we're headed, in that circumstance, then it's just the straight-up ability to do mining, the proof-of-work system, that you have an advantage because you have all the chips. That means you can mine more cryptocurrency, which means you have more money than your opponent.
And in this case, the cryptocurrency world that you're talking about, the you is the individual and or private businesses that might have invested in mining equipment, not so much governments. We don't see governments, at least not publicly, gathering mining equipment and launching massive mining farms for Bitcoin. They could, but
they might be doing it now. They're certainly not doing publicly.
Right.
And the thing is, governments are in a position where they cannot in any way endorse cryptocurrency unless they're already like being destroyed by the economic system, like El Salvador.
Right.
Whereas a country like China or Russia, the U.S., like they use their ability to print money to control their population. So if they come out in favor or even saying that it's valuable, then they're undercutting their own power.
Would it not be in one of these countries' interests, if they want to get a leg up on the other countries, to move to cryptocurrency?
Oh, yeah. Oh, without a doubt. but it's one of those, like, they would win over that country, but they would have to give up so much power over their population.
Right. They would then just be a competitor in crypto instead of in control of people with money, which is what they do with their central bank monies. There's more coming up here. You can join us at 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow with the Week in Review. This week, the United Kingdom heard another resignation speech from a Conservative Prime Minister. Liz Truss is the fourth leader to step down since 2016. She lasted just 6 weeks in office, the shortest tenure of any Prime Minister. The Conservative Party is beginning the process of choosing a new leader, who will also become the next UK Prime Minister. The winner will be chosen by October 28th, and Conservative MP Robert Halfon says the party has to get it right.
Either rightly, in my view, we face electoral oblivion, or we take a last chance from the public and make sure that we get a leader, one who will be a unifier, also that will govern with integrity.
Throughout the week, Russian missiles have struck key pieces of Ukrainian infrastructure. The country's President Volodymyr Zelensky says 30% of power stations have been destroyed. Kyiv, the US and its allies say many of the attacks were conducted using Iranian-made drones, a charge both Moscow and Tehran have vehemently denied. Ukraine's called on its partners to send more air defence systems. Germany delivered the first of 4 of the systems to Kyiv earlier this month, a move welcomed by President Zelensky, who says more of the defence technology is needed to protect civilians from attacks. From Berlin, Trent Murray has more.
The German-made air defence system was handed over by Berlin in recent weeks to Kyiv following Russia's aerial bombardment of multiple cities. The system is designed to protect a medium-sized city and can intercept incoming rockets or missiles at a range of up to 40 kilometres. Zelensky stressed, though, that Ukraine needs more of the anti-aircraft systems in order to try and create an air shield around other civilian areas. He specifically called out France, Italy and the United States for further support. Trent Murray, Berlin.
The US House Committee investigating the January 6th attack on the US Capitol issued a subpoena to former President Donald Trump on Friday. And as US correspondent Rachel Silverman reports, Trump could face legal challenges if he doesn't comply.
The subpoena requires the former president to turn over documents by November 4th and to appear for a deposition on November 14th. The House committee says its hearings presented overwhelming evidence that Trump personally orchestrated and oversaw a multi-part effort to overturn the 2020 election and to obstruct the peaceful transition of power. Trump could face legal charges if he fails to comply with the subpoena. He has reportedly suggested to aides that he might be willing to testify to the House panel if he could do so live. Rachel Silverman, San Francisco.
And a US judge has sentenced former Trump advisor Steve Bannon to 4 months in jail for contempt of Congress. Bannon refused an order to testify before the committee investigating the January 6th attack. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones are open here. The number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. It's Ian Peakless Mountaineer and Captain Kickass in the studio.
Present.
Here tonight. There's some news out of the Russia-Ukraine conflict where we've been covering in recent weeks. There was some referendums that were held in the eastern portion of Ukraine by the Donbass, and then 2 areas south of that.
What's a referendum?
It's a vote.
Okay.
Where people, some people went and they voted to join Russia, to essentially secede from Ukraine and join Russia. And that vote went through with flying colors in those areas. Of course, many are saying the vote was a sham. People in Ukraine, for instance, the Ukrainian government is not recognizing the vote. But the Russian government is. They're saying, look, this is now ours. We're going to move in here. We're moving in our courts. We're moving in our bureaucrats. We're moving in our military. This is now Russia.
Wow.
And
people are going to die, aren't they?
Yes. Well, now to Russia's credit,
more
people
are
going to die. Yes.
To Russia's credit, they are telling the residents of Kherson, which is one of the areas that voted to leave Ukraine and join Russia, to leave. They're telling the people that live there to leave the city. And that's because they are expecting Ukrainian troops to wage a counteroffensive to recapture the area from the Russians, and they want to get the average people away from the conflict that they are expecting to have happen here. So they're giving people a heads up in a post on, this is according to the AP, in a post on Telegram. The pro-Kremlin regional administration strongly urged civilians to use boat crossings over a major river to move deeper into Russian-held territory, citing a tense situation on the front and the threat of shelling and alleged plans for terror attacks by Kyiv, which has been going on in the Donbass region for some time. And now that Kherson is joining Russia, they're expecting the same sort of violence to be brought against the people of Kherson by the Ukrainian government. They've been in Russian hands since the early days of the nearly 8-month-long war, and the city is the capital of a region of the same name, one of 4 that Russian President Vladimir Putin illegally annexed last month. Well, that's according to the Western governments. According to Putin, it's all entirely legal because they held a vote. And what else? On Friday, Ukrainian forces bombarded Russian positions across the province, targeting pro-Kremlin forces' resupply routes across the Dnieper River and preparing for a final push to reclaim the city. Of course,
what would a legal annexing look like? Because, I mean, I have only ever heard the term used like this empire has decided that this chunk of whatever is now
theirs. Yeah.
What would a legal version of that even look like?
I guess where the Ukrainian government said, okay, see ya.
Right.
We'll honor your vote
and
a thing. Let you leave. I mean, a more legitimate one would have been to have some third party like the UN come in and monitor the vote, and that way they could put their little seal of approval on it and say, this was a legitimate vote. Because that's what they're saying in advance of the vote.
But then they might get the outcome they don't want. I mean, if you brought in the UN and made sure the vote was legitimate, then they might vote the way you didn't want them to. And then everyone in the world would know for sure that they actually voted that way.
Well, I think they probably still would have voted to join Russia.
Oh, yeah. I don't doubt that whatsoever. It saddens me. But
and the Ukrainian government didn't want the vote to happen either because, if you recall, they were threatening their own people and said, if you participate in the vote, we will put you in prison.
Right.
So the Ukrainian government ensured that none of their supporters, or very few of them, would actually bother to vote in this. So they ensured that the numbers would have been tipped overwhelmingly in the favor
and then
of
probably
Russia.
also...
See, you only won because I didn't let my people vote against it.
Well,
yeah.
And then they probably also
Totally.
effectively made a list of who were and were not the supporters of each side within the country itself.
So presumably the Ukrainian government, if they are able to retake this land from Russia, will then proceed to punish whatever people haven't evacuated. So, the right move here for the people of Kherson is to do as the Russians are suggesting and to get the F out.
I don't know why. Like, if you had any possible resources whatsoever to get out of there, why would you even be there?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I suddenly...
It's home. You know how people are. They stay where they're raised. It's not just an American thing; it's a people thing.
What if Canada tried to annex New Hampshire? Would you leave immediately? Would you, because you had some resources? Would you GTFO?
Well, New Hampshire's got a lot of guns.
Well, okay,
Like probably more machine guns in New Hampshire than all of Canada, including the Canadian government.
That's probably accurate. But I'm just saying,
to be perfectly honest, what I would try to do is I'd probably do what I could to make sure that we ended up neither a part of the U.S. nor a part of Canada.
Sure. I'm just saying that, like, some people, because home is really all they have. Right? All they have is their
who wants
house,
to be
their
a refugee,
or their land, or whatever.
Where are they going to end up?
Right.
In Russia.
Yep.
Western, are they going to get taken in by other Russian people?
Are they going to be able
tent
to
cities in the
find
winter?
employment or move their business or take their skills elsewhere? Do they have to give up land that's been in their family for generations? What are the repercussions here?
Yeah, still seems better than exploding.
It comes down to what are you willing to die for?
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, if you are willing to die to stay in your ancestral land, then I could definitely see that being a reason to stay. Short of that, on the other hand, you'd think that they'd get away from where people are being shot for existing.
The Russian-installed officials were reported as trying to desperately turn Kherson City, a prime objective for both sides because of its key industries and ports, into a fortress while attempting to relocate tens of thousands of residents. The Kremlin poured as many as 2,000 draftees into the surrounding region to replenish losses and strengthen frontline units, according to the Ukrainian Army's general staff. The wide Dnieper River figures as a major factor in the fighting, making it hard for Russia to supply its troops defending the city and nearby areas on the West Bank after relentless Ukrainian strikes rendered the main crossings unusable. So they're going to trash their own city, is what they're going to do. Well, if you can't have it, or if I can't have it, no one can.
This thing just reminds me of like a schoolyard fight between two, 5-6-year-old kids who are arguing over, no, it's mine, no, it's mine, no, it's mine, you can't have it, well, fine. And then they break it because they don't want the other guy to have it.
That's what's happening. Absolutely. Except it's people's lives and businesses.
These are just giant temper tantrums by people who believe they have power.
Taking control of Kherson has allowed Russia to resume fresh water supplies from the Dnieper to Crimea, which were cut by Ukraine after Moscow's annexation of the Black Sea Peninsula. A big hydroelectric power plant upstream from Kherson City is a key source of energy for the southern region. Ukraine and Russia accuse each other of trying to blow it up to flood the mostly flat region. Kherson's Kremlin-backed authorities previously announced plans to evacuate all Russia-appointed officials and as many as 60,000 civilians across the river in what a local leader said would be an organized gradual displacement. Another Russia-installed official estimated Saturday that around 25,000 people from across the region had made their way over the river. In a Telegram post, he claimed that the civilians were relocating willingly. Quote, "People are actively moving because today the priority is life. We do not drag anyone anywhere," he said, adding that some residents could be waiting for the Ukrainian army to reclaim the city. So it's getting uglier than it has already been.
Well, this is what happens when two world powers decide to have their proxy war in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, this could happen, like, anywhere.
Yes.
It could.
On Earth.
Yeah.
Anywhere on Earth.
Because every place on Earth has been claimed by a government. There's roughly 200 governments on planet Earth, so you do the math.
Not all of them are nuclear powers, so you might actually have a better chance against one or another as far as defending your own turf. But in this case, it's you're up against one of the biggest.
But you certainly can't go somewhere where there isn't a government and live freely.
No, unfortunately not.
Well, and unfortunately, the countries of the United States and Russia haven't gone, well, now that nuclear weapons exist, maybe I should stop trying to take over the planet. Because that's why they're not fighting a war directly, is because of nuclear weapons.
Yep.
But they can't stop trying to take over the planet, so they have to have these proxy wars.
Never mind the politicians actually partaking in the actual war itself and doing the killing themselves because they're cowards.
Well, right. No, they're profiting off of the military-industrial complexes in each country.
Your thoughts are welcome on this situation, or coming up, the captain's going to tell us about a county employee who's being gifted some immunity. We'll talk about it on the way. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world. So I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Yep, it's Free Talk Live, and you can join the show here and bring up whatever you want. Number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian, Peakless Mountaineer,
and the Reverend Captain Kickass.
Don't forget, you can join these guys a little bit later, starting at 10:30.
What do you mean, these guys?
Oh, I'm not going to be here, but you guys will. Captain will be heading up tonight's episode of Beard Talk Live, which will start at 10:30 Eastern.
True.
On our Odyssey channel over at watch.freetalklive.com. That's watch.freetalklive.com. That's right where the stream's going to be, so just bookmark that and come back to it about a half hour after the radio show ends, and you will be able to be entertained by a show that has no FCC restrictions. So check them out later tonight.
And lots of beard.
Yes, indeed. So that's pretty much the story from the Russia situation. The conflict is getting worse, as we predicted that was going to happen. Captain, you had a story you mentioned at the beginning of the show tonight about county employees and qualified immunity. And you said that only the police had qualified immunity, and I am shocked. I did not think that was the case. I thought it was every government bureaucrat had immunity from their actions.
You may be closer to being correct than you realize.
Okay.
What happens when a county employee acts like a police officer? This is from Reason.com. A highway engineer got qualified immunity for detaining drivers despite not being a cop. It's likely that a large chunk of people reading this have had the unenviable experience of being pulled over by a police officer for a traffic infraction. You know what you're supposed to do, but what are you supposed to do when a government employee who is not a police officer pulls you over, detains you for hours, and tries to perform a traffic stop despite having no authority to do so?
Invoke the right of revolution. Oh, sorry. Just a New Hampshire thing.
It is.
We welcome your suggestions. It's a
Article 10.
brainstorming session. Feel free to just pipe in with whatever idea pops into your head. According to U.S. Court of Appeals for the 8th Circuit, you are, in some circumstances, supposed to accept this, as if working as, say, a highway engineer confers the monopoly on power held by the state. If government has one thing, it has audacity.
But that's the thing. It basically does, because even though the state highway guy doesn't carry a gun, he still believes that he has so-called authority over you.
State authority, not like expertise in a certain area.
Yes, thanks for clarifying that. The magical,
not something so legitimate.
The magical type of authority that doesn't actually exist. It only exists in people's minds. Right. But he is one of the people that believes it. And this just attaches to every government bureaucrat, because they all. So one of the things I noticed years ago is they all really seem to get off on telling you what to do. Yeah. Whether it be the bureaucrat behind the desk at the courthouse who's just ordering you to fill out Form A or Form B, or the meter maid or whatever. Or in one example that I can remember specifically, I was in the Keene City Hall, and this bureaucrat who's like the janitor just started telling one of my friends what he needed to do with something or other. I don't know what it was, but something petty, something stupid. He just started ordering my friend to do something. I was like, well, you don't have to do what this guy says, but the janitor certainly wanted this person to. And the average person who doesn't think outside the box would absolutely have just done whatever the janitor told him to do, just because people don't question so-called authority as a general rule. And so these bureaucrats, they seem to really relish telling people, oh, go over here, do this, fill out this form.
As a member of government, I am part of the aristocracy. We are simply a better class of person than you plebeians.
That's what they really believe.
Therefore,
they do.
And you must obey me in everything.
And they believe that by doing so, they're serving you.
Do they really believe that, though?
Public servants.
Do they really believe that?
Well, they really like the accolade of pretending that it is so.
Yeah.
They like to put themselves in the light of being a public servant,
they do.
While in fact ruling over you. So they really like to get the best of both worlds. So they get the honor of someone who does serve others well and in an important role.
Right.
While in fact not actually serving anyone whatsoever.
Or being important.
But I do wonder, what do they actually believe? Do they really believe in their heart of hearts, if they have one, that they are actually a public servant, that they are serving the average person? Or is it that they know that they have power and they relish that power, and they know that the whole public service thing is just a cover for that?
It's an excuse to be a tyrant, is what it is.
Yes, but how many of them think that they are tyrants?
I'd say on average, they actually believe both.
Mm-hmm.
So they are simultaneously serving you, but they're serving you in the way that a parent serves a child. You're beneath me, so I'll do you a favor by keeping you out of trouble so that you don't make your own decisions and screw your life up.
Interesting. So this situation is not hypothetical for one Jonathan Large. That's his real name, Jonathan Large. One such engineer working for Manamin County, Minnesota. In 2017, he took umbrage with CSI, not Crime Scene Investigators. CSI is the name of a company that repairs roads. So they're a private company that the government contracts to for road repair, called CSI. In a petty dispute that quickly escalated into much more. The nitty-gritty details go something like this. The state of Minnesota hired CSI to execute some highway repairs, which required them to travel on specific roads to complete the assignment. Jonathan Large, as the overseer of these haul roads, tried to stop the company from using them. The state ultimately gave CSI access to some, but not all routes. As the project progressed, CSI requested access to another road, which they would travel on after emptying their load, thus mollifying any concerns about weight limits. Large, however, was not mollified. About an hour before CSI would be on that road, he let them know that he had arbitrarily lowered the weight limit so as to disqualify their travel. Upon seeing,
is this a private road? Is Large the owner of the road? I'm not clear on that.
Question.
He sounds like
he's
acting like
city
an owner.
engineer.
Oh,
he's a city engineer overseeing the project.
I missed that detail.
Well, the city owns the road, and he's part of the city.
I
so
see.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
He certainly thinks
Thanks
he
for
owns
clarifying.
Sure. Upon seeing two CSI trucks saunter towards him, Large used his vehicle to block their path. One driver testified he witnessed government officials changing the weight signs in front of them. So they had signs on the road said weight limit this, that, or the other, and they changed them like while they were at the roadblock. Large then said they would need to wait for police to come and ticket them before he proceeded to call the sheriff's office, the White Earth Tribal Police Department, and state troopers. Apparently this is near a reservation as well. All to address a truck he alleged was overweight, as other seemingly overweight trucks continued down the road unbothered. Large
He's so judgmental about trucks.
Yeah. Large arbitrarily lowered the limit from 5 tons per axle to 5 tons total.
Wow, okay. So a quarter.
Which would make it illegal for even many pickup trucks or vans to use those roads.
Or half.
Large did this to target my company's trucks. This is the guy speaking for the company. Which were running empty on these roads for his petty power play, said Alan Minerath, CSI's president, in a statement. He let other heavier trucks pass while he only stopped CSI trucks and detained the drivers. If it's a free country, that means we should be able to drive on roads just like anybody else. Yeah, of course. Our reaction is no, it's not a free country.
But just to clarify, this company was there at the behest of the state, right? And they encountered resistance from a city bureaucrat. Am I understanding this correctly? CSI was there to repair roads.
Right. CSI is the company doing the road repair, and he's an engineer, a city engineer, Mr. Large.
Right.
So
and he comes in.
Is like, man, I don't know, I'm not going to travel on my roads or whatever, right? So yeah, it's just bizarre. It's a bizarre like flex. That's all that's really happening here is Mr. Large is flexing his authoritarian power at
and where does the qualified immunity come into play?
Well, so CSI sued for this behavior and for usurping this extrajudicial authority. The federal courts awarded Large qualified immunity. So the company, the road repair company CSI, sued, and the courts went, oh, no, this guy, he's a city engineer, but he has qualified immunity because we say so.
Yeah.
Wow. So, like, in a just system, like, you would get if you had competition in courts, at the very least, what would happen is they'd see the lawsuit and go, oh, you were breaking the law by, imprisoning someone without, due process. Because, I mean, it may not be actually reasonably moral to do due process and then kidnap someone, but they at least believe that you are allowed to kidnap people after you go through the rigmarole of, having a trial.
So the doctrine of qualified immunity protects government employees when an alleged violation is not clearly established in a prior court precedent, meaning CSI had to find a previous ruling with nearly identical facts. Guess what? None exists.
And so, again, it's not just for the police. It's just you hear about it a lot with the police because they're usually the ones violating people's rights on a more, consistent basis. So they tend to have more court cases about them. But if you're a government bureaucrat, you tend to be given this thing.
Probably not the end of the story.
Yeah, maybe more coming up later tonight with Beard Talk Live starting at 10:30 Eastern Time on our video channel.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden